morning, everyone, and welcome to IDxConversations, We More Than Me. Every June 29, the World Design Organization, of which the Design Center of the Philippines is a member, celebrates World Industrial Design Day. World Industrial Design Day is a global celebration which aims to increase awareness of the profession of industrial design and celebrates the power of design in strengthening economic, cultural, social, and environmental development. This World Industrial Design Day, the Design Center celebrates through IDxConversations, We More Than Me. We have an exciting set of talks in store for everyone today. But before we begin, please take a moment to settle into your seats and make sure that your phone is in silent mode. To usher us into the program, let me introduce the host and moderator for today's talk. She is a licensed interior designer with a strong focus on developing human-centered products and built environments. She earned her bachelor's degree in interior design at the University of Santo Tomas and placed first at the 2009 Interior Design Licensure exam. She also graduated with the highest distinction honors in her Master's in Innovation and Business from the Asian Institute of Management. Beyond her academic achievements, our host and moderator also prides herself in pushing for scalable impact in her endeavors, particularly in her role as the Director for Public Relations and Communications at the Philippine Institute of Interior Designers, or PIID. As a co-founder and interior designer at Spaces Design Studio, she orchestrates experience design, weaving cultural and societal values into spaces that transcend functionality and fosters positive collaboration to promote a Filipino values-driven approach. Currently, she serves as the Division Chief of the Design Services Division of the Design Center of the Philippines. Without much ado, let us all welcome to the IDX stage, Ms. Carla May Leonor.
All right, good day everybody, and welcome to the IDX Conversations, We More Than Me. This is the Philippine session of World Industrial Design Day, and I'm Carla Leonor. I'm the Design Services Division Chief of the Design Center of the Philippines, and it's my honor to be your host and your moderator for today. So, from its maiden edition in 2017, where sustainable consumption and production practices were fleshed out, to its 2023 edition, where design's new purpose was unraveled, IDX has never failed to live up to its goal of celebrating World Industrial Design Day in a unique, timely, and truly global manner. This year's World Industrial Design Day carries the theme, Let's Get Ethical, shedding light on ethical design and inviting designers to embrace transparency, empathy, and integrity as crucial building blocks in their designs. Now in the Philippines, we are amping up this global design celebration with another thought-provoking and insightful roundtable discussion that brings together the best and the brightest design visionaries and thought leaders to tackle and discuss how Filipino core values of kapwa can be a crucial building block that makes Philippine design distinct and act as a core strength of our country's very first national design policy. So that sounds exciting, right? And I'm sure everyone wants to learn more about this. So before we officially begin, we would like to acknowledge the presence of De La Salle College of St. Benilde Chancellor Ben Ong. Round of applause, please. De La Salle College of St. Benilde Vice Chancellor for Academics, Mr. Angelo Lacson. De La Salle College of St. Benilde School of Environment and Design, Dean Harvey Vasquez. And of course, De La Salle College of St. Benilde Chairperson for Industrial Design, Mr. Romeo Catap Jr. IDX has always been rooted in collaborative connections among design communities in the Philippines. And this year, IDX blazes strong and high as it forges ties with De La Salle College of St. Benilde which has been renowned not only for its innovative education programs, but more so for its industry-focused education, particularly in the creative, arts, and design fields. To give due recognition to the relentless support of De La Salle College of St. Benilde, let's all welcome to the IDX stage the head of the Industrial Design Division. We have Mr. Romeo Catap Jr.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, and I'm speaking on behalf of our school dean, Architect Harvey Vasquez. So, as the program chair of industrial design, I'm very excited to be here and for us to have this program together. So, welcome to this event that is focused on two words, which is me and we. This is a title that may sound very playful, but it holds a very powerful tension between individuality and community. And when I saw the title from the very beginning, a lot of things have been coming around. And then what could be the good direction for this one? And it's very interesting because in the world of design, we are often taught to speak with bold clarity. We as designers, we defend our choices, we own our own processes to develop a distinct voice, and that is the me. That is each and every one of us. But what happens if there are multiple me's sitting at the same table, and we'll have that panel here later, and we have an actual table. And that's when the magic of the we begins. So today we are diving into the conversations that shape us, not just the visuals that we create, the values that we carry, and the questions that we ask, and the perspectives that we will listen to. Conversations between us, all of the designers of different fields. I believe it's not just industrial designers, but also from interior design, architecture, fashion. We have a lot. Also in graphic design. And we're not just about critique or collaboration, but this is about co-creation, community, and even conflict. And I'm also very excited with this because finally, I can say this, finally, Design Center of the Philippines and Benilde Industrial Design were under one roof. We've had a lot of fist bumps before, many times when we were exhibiting nung nandun pa yung design center dito sa may Pasay. No? We had our exhibit there malapit lang, but then you moved, so sayang. No? Sir Kenneth and I, Sir Kenneth Cowan and Miss Rita, and Miss Rhea, we've been having those talks, but because of the pandemic, some things didn't work out. But now that we have this opportunity to converse together, and being the only two World Design Organization members so far in the Philippines, and we want more, hopefully more. Let's have this because you have the resources, you have the connections, you have the linkages, and you have the experts. Sir Jude is here, okay, and then and also all of our other speakers, and then we have the learners, very excited learners who is the future of our country, and this is what we want to celebrate together. This is one conversation that we wouldn't want to just pass by, and on behalf of this program, we are very excited to have you here. I'll also take this opportunity to invite you also because Design Center is in charge of the World Industrial Design Day. Allow us to have a week on July 7 to 11. Kami naman, as an academic institution, we will be celebrating the World Industrial Design Week since we are the academic part that is hosting for the rest of the academe here in the Philippines. So our doors are open on July 7 to 11. We'll also have another exhibit which is being led by Sir Gabri Chauco and Ms. Dindin Araneta, so you are all welcome to join us as well. So those are little things that we do together, and then at the end of the day, we are both doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. So let's talk, let's challenge, let's connect, and let's design better together. So welcome to De La Salle College of St. Benilde. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Chairperson Romeo Catap for the Industrial Design Program. Now, through IDxConversations, the Design Center of the Philippines continues to emphasize the importance of design in creating sustainable and impactful solutions, while celebrating the unique contributions of Filipino designers to the global design community. To welcome us to this year's IDX, let's hear from no other than the Executive Director of Design Center of the Philippines. We have Ms. Rhea Matute.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Allow me to once again acknowledge our speakers and everyone involved in today's celebration of the World Industrial Design Day. Well, not yet here, but coming, our secretary for TESDA, Francisco Kiko Benitez, De La Salle College of St. Benilde Chancellor Ben Herong, De La Salle College of St. Benilde Chancellor for Academics, Mr. Angelo Lacson, De La Salle College of St. Benilde School of Environment and Design, Harvey Vasquez, De La Salle College of St. Benilde Chairperson for Industrial Design, Romeo Katab Jr., President of Asian Social Institute and former National Commission for Culture and the Arts Chairperson, Professor Felipe de Leon, our Design Advisory Council Co-Chair, Mylene Abiva, National Design Policy Lead Consultant, Paolo Mercado, and of course, Industria Edition Co-Founder and Creative Lead, Jude Tiotuico, our esteemed partners and fellow designers, design advocates, design curious, and yes, even design skeptics, and all of you from different parts of design and societal spectrum. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat, and for our international audience, good day to you all. It is with great pleasure and gratitude that we welcome you today at the De La Salle College of St. Benilde as we join the World Design Organization community to mark the annual celebration of the World Industrial Design Day. On behalf of the Design Center of the Philippines, we thank De La Salle College of St. Benilde for the opportunity to once again work together for our shared goal of making the Philippines a design-led nation by mobilizing the design and creative sectors as catalysts in nation building. Dean Harvey and I were just together actually last week, and we are closely working to soon institutionalize this partnership to bring our collaboration for greater impact, not only to the new generation of designers and creatives, but to unleash new areas beyond aesthetics where we can truly showcase what design can do. 8 years ago, Design Center of the Philippines made the commitment to the World Design Organization to consistently and to constantly celebrate World Industrial Design Day through IDx. IDx has since served as a powerful platform in honoring the contribution of industrial designers and designers in general in shaping the world. From sparking thought-provoking conversations to inspiring action for positive change, IDx is an opportunity for all of us to challenge our perspectives on design, finding ways to move it from familiar territories and well-worn paths so we can unlearn and learn anew and emerge as better designers and in support of the practice of humanity-centered design. Grounded on World Industrial Design Day's theme for 2025, Let's Get Ethical, IDxConversations, We, More Than Me, serves to discuss not just the central role of design in transforming the world, but more so to unravel how our values as Filipinos can guide and transform the way we design. It probes how do our virtues and values as Filipinos influence the objects, images, places, and systems that we design. The core value inherent among us Filipinos is the core value of kapwa. Kapwa, the core of Filipino social psychology, is a recognition of a shared identity, an inner self shared with others. Actions rooted in kapwa deeply underscores the importance of empathy, compassion, and systems thinking. And Design Center is going all in on kapwa as our unique voice in design, not just in terms of us and fellow humans in this world, but with all living things, with the entire planet, and truly lend that kapwa consciousness and humanity-centered design. I hope that by the end of this edition of IDx, you will too. The Philippine government, through the Department of Trade and Industry and the Design Center of the Philippines, supports and extends its genuine commitment to empower Filipino designers, especially young designers, to be values-driven and ethical in their practice, so not only can we have good designers that solves problems, but develop great design that prevents problems. Because as designers have come to realize that today's problems were yesterday's solutions. In closing, may this edition of IDx bring new vigor to Filipino designers and empower them to design not just with malasakit, but with kapwa at the core and the core of our design process. May this edition of IDX spark within each of you a sense of responsibility that puts being ethical, sustainable, and strategic at the core of your design practice. Let's build a powerful momentum from here on and design for the we and not just the me. Happy World Industrial Design Day, everyone. Maraming salamat.
Thank you for that wonderful message, our Executive Director, Ria Matute. Now, every year, the Philippines joins the World Design Organization in global celebration of World Industrial Design Day through IDX. And IDX recognizes the importance of industrial design and designers in strengthening economic, social, cultural, and environmental developments around the world. With that, we would like to play a message from the World Design Organization Managing Director, Bertrand Derome.
Greetings, everyone. Every year, on 29 June, designers from around the world come together to mark World Industrial Design Day. What started back in 2008 as a way to spotlight the work of industrial designers has since grown into a global celebration of design's impact. Thanks to your continued creativity and passion, this day has become an important reminder of what matters most to us at WDO, how design can spark a real change in our communities, industries, and everyday life. This year, I'm proud to recognize this day as we celebrate the theme of Let's Get Ethical. In an era where design decisions have far-reaching implications, it's no secret that designers have a real opportunity and responsibility to lead with ethics, to ensure that we're designing not just for innovation, but for fairness, sustainability, and human dignity. Ethical design challenges us to consider the broader impacts of our work, to engage with diverse perspectives, and to create more inclusive solutions for tomorrow. This 29 June, we encourage you all to embrace this moment of dialogue and reflection and explore how ethics can empower your creative process in new ways. Wishing you all a very happy and ethical World Industrial Design Day.
And that definitely sets the tone for today's conversations. So before we proceed, we'd like to acknowledge our partners who have made this event possible. Our co-presenter is the World Design Organization, our institutional partner, De La Salle College of St. Benilde, our program partners, the Design Advisory Council of the Philippines and A. Garcia Lifestyle Inc., our media partners, Adobo Magazine, and of course, Art Plus Magazine. Thank you again for your relentless support. All right, now for everyone here, please don't forget to tag us in your posts and stories with our official event hashtags, hashtag WIDD2025, and hashtag Let's Get Ethical, as well as hashtag IDX2025 and hashtag IDxConversations. So as Filipinos, the concept of kapwa is something that guides most of our actions, our relationships, and the way we deal with others. It's sort of like our Northern Star and makes our culture distinct from other cultures around the world. However, the concept of kapwa has more than it meets the eye. What it can be used for to make our designs more efficient, more effective, and more ethical. And what if the concept and consciousness of kapwa can also inform the very first national design policy in the country? That's for us to find out today. And we have an amazing set of speakers to enlighten us on these topics. So before I introduce our first speaker, we just have a few reminders for our live audience here today. So to make sure that everyone will benefit from the information that will be presented by our speakers and avoid unnecessary distractions, we kindly request everyone to put their phones on silent mode. Again, we kindly request for everyone to put their phones on silent mode. Thank you. Our presentation today will also have a roundtable discussion and a Q&A portion that you, everyone in the audience, can partake in. So if at any point you have questions or have any insights that you may want to raise or want to clarify, Just kindly take note of them, and then later we'll bring them up during the Q&A portion. And for those who are tuning in online on the DTI Design Center Facebook page, you can also send your questions in the platform. Now off to our main event. Our first keynote speaker is one of the leading advocates of Filipino culture and identity. As the former National Commission on Culture and the Arts chairman, he is a champion of our core values on bayanihan, kabutihang loob, and kapwa. He was also the former chair of the Humanities Division of the National Research Council of the Philippines, an agency under the Department of Science and Technology. As a former professor of arts at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, he taught humanities, aesthetics, music theory, and Philippine art and culture. He also served as a lecturer on social transformation courses at the Asian Social Institute in Manila. He has also done many studies in Philippine musicology, particularly on the kundiman and other folk music traditions. So as a composer, he has written music for various plays and has written quite a number of nationalistic songs. He obtained multiple master's degrees from 1973 to 1991. And without further ado, please let us all welcome to the IDX stage, Mr. Felipe De Leon Jr.
Thank you for the introduction. I'd like to greet Executive Director Rhea Matute of the Design Center of the Philippines, other officers of the Design Center and, of course, DTI, and my colleague, co-speaker today, Mr. Paolo Mercado. You know, I always am afraid that I'll go over time. I'll try to control myself because this topic is quite elaborate and very complicated. Culture is one of the most complex phenomena ever. And let's look at our culture from, can I remove this so that I can move a little? No? I don't like to be fixed on a particular place. Anyway, my PowerPoint is visible enough, no? I think. So my title is Upholding Filipino Dignity through Design. And maybe this is not on.
Forward lang.
Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay. In Philippine culture, there is an underlying belief in the shared identity of human beings. This is the meaning of kapwa. The other person is also yourself. And this is the core of Filipino psychology, humaneness at the highest level, because it implies a unique moral obligation to treat one another as equal fellow human beings. This is the meaning of kapwa. If you think of the universe as an infinite sun, at the center is God, or the creative living principle, and it's one of us. Bawat isa sa atin is a ray of God. So we all come from the center. That's why we are all one. No? That's the meaning of kapwa. Kapwa means the other person is also yourself. That's why you have to treat the other person as you treat yourself. No? Each one of us is a unique expression of this creative living presence. Bawat isa sa atin ay sinag ng dakilang may likha. So every person is a soul, an individual ray of this infinite source. This induces in the Filipino a deep sense of worth and dignity based on the assumption of oneness with God. Every person is sacred. No? Kapwa is an awareness of the rootedness of each one of us in the one divine essence within. Okay? That's why it implies the golden rule of all the great religions. treat your neighbor as you treat yourself because your neighbor is also yourself. Unlike pakikisama, let me see. Nagminalo ko ito. Okay. Why does it jump? Okay. Unlike pakikisama, pakikipagkapwa has no negative connotation. Pakikisama is not a Filipino value. Ang nagpapakalat lang yan na Filipino value, mga commercial enterprises, no? Pakikisama kayo, bili kayo ng beer na ito. But pakikisama is not really the Filipino value. How can it be a value? Pwede kayo mapasama sa basag ulo, mapasama sa korupsyon. That's not the Filipino value. It's really pakikipagkapwa, no? Pakikipagkapwa has no negative connotation. Ayaw talaga, no? Where will I direct this so that... dito lang, okay. Okay. So pakikisama is the deepest level of involvement with another person is still considered an outsider. Ang pinakikisamahan, outsider lang. Why? If I am a guest in your house, habang inaasikaso niyo ako, dito pagkain na, pag nagutom ka, buksan mo lang ang ref, nandito tuwalya if you like to take a bath. Habang inaasikaso niyo ako, I'm still a visitor. And if I'm already part of your household, hindi niyo ko kailangang asikasuhin. Hindi na yun pakikisama, no? Okay. So,
Sir, sabihin nyo na lang po next, tapos...
sige. Sige. Next na lang kasi mabagal kasi pag next eh. Okay. Next, please. Next. Okay. So pakikipagkapwa in principle excludes any action that may be detrimental or harmful to other human beings. It's definitely inconsistent with exploitative human transaction. Hindi ito gamitan, no? Okay. Hindi tayo matatapos ito. So, Filipino traditional culture is not transactional, not utilitarian. The deep sense of oneness with others makes Filipinos value human connectivity highly. Human beings are not a resource. There's something wrong with the language that talks about human beings as a resource. That's not Filipino. Because human beings are sacred and we have to harmonize and work together for a common purpose. Human beings are not soulless machines or mere statistics in the order of things. And Filipinos do not like to be treated as objects, but as persons who feel life deeply. Filipinos are number one in experiencing the widest range of emotions every single day. That's according to many studies. Look, we are the most emotionally aware countries. Number one, the Philippines. El Salvador, Bahrain, Oman, Colombia, Chile. And, let me see. Nag-jump, tumalon, no? Tumalon. Can you please go back?
Sige po, sabihin nyo na lang, sir, next. Ako na po magkakata. Next na lang.
Sige, go back, please. Back, please. Back. Isa pa. Yan. Sige. So, the most, yan. Hanggang dyan, the Ecuador, and then next slide, please. It's worth noting that the least emotionally aware country, Singapore, is the only country in the world now to fully incorporate emotional intelligence skill development. So, kailangan din silang matuto ng emotion, no? Next slide, please. So, emotion, look, what I'll try to give you is how Filipinos have manifested their values. How pakikipagkapwa correlates with certain visual elements. How Filipinos have interpreted, no, their own values to come up with particular designs. No? So, aesthetically speaking, there's a strong correlation between a feeling orientation or emotional expressiveness with color. The more emotional a people are, the more they love colors. Filipinos, especially in our traditional communities, prefer a polychromatic color scheme. A more restrained orientation favors monochromatic designs or those with neutral colors like white, black, and gray. In general, the elites are much less expressive in their color preferences, which coincides with their monotonal speech patterns. Next slide, please. So typically, generally, if in our traditional cultures, people love color, especially in the rural areas. Next slide, please. Yan. Yan. Dahan-dahan lang. Yung una muna, no? Back please. That is Maguindanao. Next. That's Tausug. And that's Samar, from Samar, Basay Samar. Next slide, please. That's Pahias in Lokban. Okay, that's Hernando Ocampo. It continues until modern art. Next slide, please. Okay. So Filipinos are highly relational, nurturing, caring, and compassionate people who seek harmony and oneness with us. Kaya nga, we don't treat each other as a resource, but as one with ourselves. So our culture seems to be infused with so much anima, the mother archetype. Next slide, please. Being a most highly relational people in the world, Filipinos love to connect to others and bring people together. We like to share what we have with others. Sharing of being is a social basis of health and happiness. Kapag may pista, pwedeng makikain kahit kaninong bahay na may handa. Uuwi ka, may pabalot pa. Pag may nanalo, malamang may balato. In our food culture, according to Claude Tayag, culinary expert Claude Tayag, sabi niya, in our food culture, we have no recipe for a single person. It's always at least something that 10 people can share. Filipinos are hardly eat alone. Pag may kumakain na nag-iisa, naaawa kayo. Ba't ka nag-iisa? Gusto mo samahan kita. Invite a person to your party, how many will come? You invite one, 10 ang darating. Isang batalyon na darating. That's why RSVPs are meaningless in our culture. There's always an extra bed kasi palagi may bantay sa mga ospital. And we smile most of the time because that's the easiest way to connect. Next slide, please. We are so eager for social networking. That's why we are texting, Facebook, and selfie capital reward. Bonus makes workers feel part of the family, making them more loyal, honest, and hardworking. Pasalubong is almost a sacred ritual because that's the best way to reconnect after coming home from a distance. That's why lahat na may iuwi mula sa hotel, kinokolekta, pati toilet paper, inuuwi yan. Next slide, please. No? Now, anyway, in spite of the rapid changes our country is going through, a great majority of our people have retained much of our traditional communal, makakapwa, and spiritual values. Note how during the pandemic, so many Filipinos initiated programs to help the poor meet their basic needs, like the community pantries, which mushroomed all throughout the country. Next slide. During time of disaster, bayanihan and volunteer work to save lives and alleviate suffering abound. Pakikipagkapwa, pakikiramdam, malasakit, kagandang loob are very much alive. We should never lose these qualities. So, at their best, Filipinos are a highly nurturing, caring, sharing people with strong maternal orientation, definitely not loners. And we have a genius in interpersonal communication. We are geniuses in interpersonal communication and nurturing, caring attitude. That's why we excel in the service profession or industry. No? Nicely. And we are loving people. Filipinos like to read love stories and watch TV dramas about romance. According to a survey done in 2013, Filipinos came out on top of 136 countries in feeling love. Next slide, please. So, look, now, one correlation. Pakikiramdam is part of kapwa. Knowing to feeling or participatory sensitivity. Pakikiramdam makes the Filipinos especially compassionate, affective, malambing, gentle, and kind. That's why there are many kinds of art that... Next slide, please. Next slide, please. That's why many kinds of art use flowing, mellifluous lines, no? Next slide, please. Filipinos prefer mediation, not confrontation. That's why pahiwatig, pakiusap, pakikibagay biro are only a few of the orchestral ways of techniques for bridging differences. Because that's pakikipagkapwa. So, next slide, please. That's why we love curves rather than angles, no? Next slide, please. Look, the contemporary expression of that could be this kind of chair, and Filipinos love flowing curvilinears, no? Next slide, please. Pagbibigayan, sharing, interdependence is manifested in avoiding stark contrast and engage in micro-interweaving of colors and other elements resulting in great harmony. Next slide, please. The one at the left is very Western. What do the Filipinos do, especially in the provinces, especially in traditional culture? They break up the colors into small parts and put them together in micro positioning, so that the red and the green become harmonious. This is what we do. We chop up the different colors in many small parts and distribute them in a micro-harmonic way. That's what we do. Next slide, please. So, we love to touch because touching is one of the most effective way to connect to people. Wala nakakaligtas dyan sa mga palengke. Nako, malalamog na sa kahihipo yung mga gulay. So we love tactile shapes. We love anything that is inviting to the touch, as ancient as, before. Next slide, please. This comes from 200 BC, you know? Look, even before the Spaniards came, we already loved tactile things. And this is one way to interest Filipinos. We don't like museums where there is a warning, look only. We don't like that. We love to touch. We like to ride on things, you know. We like to join, you know, the event. We like to participate. So a museum has to be interactive. That's what the Filipinos like. Next slide, please. Look, that's why this is a fugao basket with a rich texture. Filipinos like that very much, no? Next slide, please. And empathy is much weakened by our westernized education. Filipinos have been to our westernized educational system, which includes the elite, bureaucrats, upper and middle classes, and much of the lower middle class, may not manifest much of the kagandahang loob, pakikiramdam, and the pakikipagkapwa. They become individualists. That's the result of academic education, which is very, very Western. Next slide, please. So, Filipinos are not individualistic, no? This is very important, that's why I'll read it carefully. We are personalistic, not individualistic. When you hire a termite exterminator to cure your house of this pest, you agree to certain terms with him. You may both sign a contract which binds the two of you to its terms. The relationship here is purely functional between two individuals, one a layman, the other a specialist. Once the job is done, you're satisfied. You pay the termite exterminator. No further transactions are needed. This is an official, impersonal, even legal relationship, like all relationships in the bureaucracy and big business. What if this termite expert becomes your neighbor? Unless he is a very private person, you'll get to know his family, his interests, story of his life, vices and virtues, jokes, and even his emotional ups and downs. This is the kind of connection cherished by many Filipinos. Holistic, informal, deep, lasting, and promotes oneness with the community. That is personalism. Filipinos are personalistic people, not individualistic. Next slide, please. So, we like to experience the wholeness of life. We like to know a person wholly. Next slide, please. We don't like a partial, fragmented view of life. Next slide. We respond to life synergistically. Next slide, please. A Filipino is not happy just knowing another person's name. We would also like to inquire about his work, hometown, relatives, marital status, even his salary. Tatanungin lahat yan. Kailangan makonect tayo completely as a whole person. Next slide. So, we are personalistic. We connect to each other with our whole being. Those communal, inclusive, interdependent. Happiness is being one with others where blessings are shared. Westerners are individualistic, bureaucratic, impersonal. They connect to one another according to their designated social role, specialization, professional or official capacity, giving much value to privacy, independence, exclusiveness, hierarchy, top-down decision making. That's the opposite of who we are. We are participatory, inclusive. Next slide, please. So, before that, there are three cultures in the world. Culture of power, where people are attached to power and privilege, control and domination. This is the culture of the military, government, and politics. Culture of wealth, where people are attached to wealth and material goods, comfort, pleasure. This is the culture of big business, capitalism, Trump's America. Next slide. And the third culture is the culture of the common good, culture of the higher self, culture of shared being. No? Madaling maging tao, mahirap magpakatao. We like to share. This is a culture that traditionally Filipino. Next slide, please. So, if our culture is the culture of the common good, we'll be personalist. In personalism, which belongs to the culture of common good, personalism belongs to the culture of the common good. It is strive for art that binds communities, that creates a strong feeling of devotion to the home and family. Seen in its painstaking attention to detail and ornament. In other words, homey art with so much attention to detail. It's very, very Filipino in orientation, no? Like this. This one is not. This one is Russian. I'm just showing the equivalent in Russia. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And babushka dolls, that's the Russian. And this is Filipino. So much detail, just to show that there's devotion. It's really for the home. You cannot have this much devotion if you are creating just for business, no? This is paete, no? All of these are paete. Next slide, please. And this one is also in paete. The counterpart, next slide, please. Yeah, the counterpart in our contemporary life would be this Kenneth Cowan chair. It is also very homey in character. Next slide, please. Yes, this one. And also another one could be, and the cabinet, which is very homey in character. It shows devotion to the family. Next slide, please. Or this one of Kenneth Cowan also, this very rattan bed. Another, this is Filipino, very Filipino, because it's the homey quality and it uses native materials. Next slide, please. Yes, Kenneth Cowan bed. Next slide, please. Okay. In the culture of power is obsessed with domination, control, and manipulation. The delusion of control over everything eliminates decorations. This is not Filipino. A good example is found in modern banks, insurances, and military buildings, where all such details are found together, square buildings with square windows. The least amount of variation and the maximum amount of uniformity. That's not Filipino. No? Wala man lang expression of personality. There's a desire for what? Stability. So it's important to know that the core principles of Philippine ethnicity are built upon the culture of the common good rather than the culture of power or the culture of wealth. That's why relationships are more important for most Filipinos than economic power. Next slide, please. We do not fragment human beings and natural images. Why? Because we connect with the whole. We don't connect with one part only. Hindi gamitan yan. No? With the Filipinos' deep sense of worth and dignity, believing that every person is sacred and that everything in nature is alive, we do not fragment their images. The attitude is one of harmony with all of creation. We treat one another holistically as a multi-level being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. We do not fragment human and natural images. The kind of abstraction we make does not isolate one or more parts of the anatomy. We do not dislocate and rearrange parts as in Picasso's analytical and synthetic cubism. Next slide, please. Ayan, look. Manansala's work. Manansala was a student of Braque and Picasso, but he does not fragment the human being. Next slide, please. Picasso. Manansala, walang fragmentation. Picasso. Manansala. Picasso. Manansala. Picasso. Manansala. And this is the most abstract. This is the most abstract of Manansala, but still no dislocation and fragmentation. Next slide, please. Look, this Picasso portrait of a young girl. We don't do this. We preserve the sacredness of the human being. Next slide, please. And the highest kind of abstraction we make in our traditional culture, the highest kind of abstraction we make is stylization. What is stylization? That is abstraction, is preserve the wholeness. Look, you can see, no? The moon, the snake there. Now you get the essence. It's still the whole, but simplified. Stylization does not fragment. It captures the spirit or essence of a thing. That's the kind of abstraction that we make. This is Kalinga. This is one used by Wang Od, no? And other Kalingas in the north. Stylization rather than what? Fragmentation. Next slide, please. Stylization. Look at these stylized ones. Stylization, together with our highly rhythmic designs, basically affirm Filipino hope, full of optimism, existential joy, and harmony with life. These ones, look at the human beings there, stylized, no? Dancing people, dancing man. And at the center is, the left is from Aba, the one at the center is Ilocano Abel. And this is the design of whirlwind, Cosikos. The one at the right is the Tree of Life by Tiotuico. Abstract, but stylized and not fragmented, no? Next slide, please. Okay, so the culture of the common good is built upon trust and openness. We are open people, and the Philippines is highly accessible and accommodating. This quality of character manifests in transparency or openness in art. People who are open and accommodating would love transparency in art. And it's not surprising that transparency in cubism was introduced to the world. It was a Filipino, Vicente Manansala, who introduced transparent cubism to the world. Next slide, please. Because the cubism of Braque, and next slide. And Picasso, Braque, this is Braque. And Picasso, girl looking into the mirror. Imagine, girl looking into the mirror pero opaque pa rin, hindi pa rin transparent. In other words, the cubism of Braque and Picasso is opaque, but Filipino cubism, next slide please, is transparent. In other words, we introduced the word transparent cubism because Filipino psychology values openness, and openness is translated into visual arts in what? Transparency. Next slide, please. In other words, transparency is native to the Philippines. With piña, barong, hoses, sinamay are all more or less translucent or transparent. Next slide, please. Our houses are basically open, no? And you can, sometimes you don't know which is the interior and which is the exterior. There's impenetrability of exterior and interior, very transparent, like this one, like this one. This is not Spanish. We make a mistake if we think that this is Spanish. The only thing that is European there, the only thing that is European here is the furniture and the chandelier. But the design of the house is very Filipino. Wide open windows. You cannot say wide open windows in a temperate zone. Pagdating ng winter, lagot kayo pag ganyan kalalaki mga bintana ninyo. Impossible ito sa Europe. With wide open windows, that can only be Filipino. No? Next slide, please. Look at this, wide open window, wide windows, no? Ito ang mga totoong, these are the authentic Spanish houses. With very small windows, without awnings, who have no overhangs. The houses are made of stone all throughout. Ito mga talagang Spanish houses. Next slide, please. Yan, no ventanilla. Made of stone or throughout. Spanish houses. This is Filipino. There's nothing Spanish here. Ang mga Pilipino, akala nila Kastila ito. No, this is Filipino. Next slide, please. This is Spanish. And this is Filipino with windows all around. Next slide, please. And we love transparency even in modern art. Next slide, please. Orlina. And we have a demand for transparency even in politics. We think that people who are opaque, secretive, aloof, are suspect, no? And next slide, please. So how do we identify ourselves as people? We are people who are highly skilled. We are people who are highly skilled in creating situations, activities, or things that bring people together. We are number one in the world in this skill, bringing people together. Since we love to connect the people, then we enjoy and excel in making things. Hindi pa tapos na. Since we love to connect the people, then we enjoy and excel in making things and activities that connect people. Then we are masters of human connectivity. Being masters of human connectivity, this means that we have hundreds of ways. We have hundreds of ways to connect socially. No? Next slide, please. Look at the affixes in our languages. Affixes, no? Mas maraming affixes, mas relational. Ilan ang mabubuo sa English gamit ang pandiwang to eat? How many affixes can you form using the word to eat? 4 lang. Eat, eating, eaten, ate. But in our languages, ganong karami ang anyo ng kain. Next slide, please. Kumakain, napakain, pakikain, palakain. Ikain mo ako, I cannot go to your party. Ikakakain, kagsikain. Next slide, please. Magkakain. Lahat na, kakainan na, pagpakain mo sa baboy, pagkakain mo ito, kinainan mo, ha? Next slide, please. Okay, pagkainan. Ano ba pinagkakain mo sa makitan tiyan mo? Makakain nga ng luto mo, masarap daw. Manginain, nangangain ng printer mo, pwede mo na, makain, baka wala ka naman makain bukas, ubos na ang supply. And so on. Pakain naman yan, pagkakain, pakikain, ang dami-dami yan. In English, there are only 4. It shows you that they're individualists. They don't care about relationships as much as we do. And how do you translate this in architecture, in visual design? Next slide, please. How can design cope up with these countless social interactions, functions, and relations in Philippine culture? The oldest solution is just to have a big central space surrounded by a smaller space in different levels. This is why, because if you come up with a room for every social function, you will end up with a mansion or a palace. Another is transformability of structures. Here are the parts you can transform. Rolling of bamboo floors. The floors made of tight bamboo slats can be rolled to convert the house into a meeting hall. Open layouts. The absence of rigid doom divisions allows for flexible use. allows for flexible use of space. Walls can be added or removed to create different configurations based on changing needs. Next slide, please. Oh, look at this. This is the oldest solution, just a big room, no, where you can do your functions, and there are many levels for sleeping and doing other things. This is in Palawan. Kanya-kanyang, ano yan, pang magsatrabaho sa pinakamalaking space, an old solution. Or you can have balconies and verandas, staircases that can move, windows and counters, modular construction. Yan ang paraan para magamit yung multi-relational character natin. Next slide, please. But in spite of living in rapidly changing times, our genius for human connectivity has remained intact. No? Look, we are very creative in things that bring people together like fiestas. Next slide, please. And art, and dance troops, vocal instrumental performers, theater groups. We are the best choral groups. We have the best choral groups in the world. And we also are very good in bringing people together like beauty pageants and big international events. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. Public now. The most effective technique that we use to bring people together is multi-significance. Packing things, activities, and objects in multiple uses, functions, and values so that they attract or bring together people of different tastes and preferences. The fiestas we mentioned, but other examples about halo-halo, sinigang, kare-kare, puchero, pito-pito, medley of songs, and many more. Pinakamagaling tayo yan. Next slide, please. 3-in-1, sinigang, medley, Filipino films, halo-halo yan. Next slide, please. Nandiyan na. Tanggalin niya na ayaw nyo. Pito-pito. And this one is galinera, traditional solution. A work of art, upuan yan at same time kulungan ng manok. We are always put things together. No? Next slide, please. When they diversify to bring more people together. When they go shopping, Filipinos bring along their relatives and friends who naturally have varied interests. A bookstore selling only books may excite one person, but not his friends. Kaya ultimately, malulugi ang isang bookstore. Ultimately, malulugi ang isang bookstore na libro lang. No? Like nawala na Alemars, Power Books, halos wala na. But national, nandiyan pa kasi national is what? Nandun yung books, at the same time you have what? School supplies and many others. National Bookstore is almost a department store. It's best to diversify as much as possible without losing focus so everybody in your family or circle of friends will be happy. Next slide, please. And look, Filipinos always put together, so Filipinos always want to be together, so we put everything together. Sari-sari store, an extension of our country becomes tambayan, bookstore becomes a department store, drugstore becomes a grocery, gasoline station becomes an eatery. Next slide, please. But of course, the champion of multi-significance is the Filipino Mall, which we pioneered. It brings together the sari-sari store, park, and plaza in gigantic proportions. Next slide, please. The main reason for the most immense popularity is where else in the world you find a mall where you can pay your bills, apply for passports, renew your licenses, have a haircut, do work out in a gym, get medical treatment, attend watch a movie, or go to the supermarket. Next slide, please. It's no accident, therefore, that IKEA of Sweden built its largest store in the world in Pasay City. Next slide. Ayan. Next slide, please. So, in our holistic, communal, and soulful traditional cultures, art is part of everyday life. And almost everyone is an artist. This is a very good philosophy of design. No? Beauty is the essential condition of the soul. In our traditional cultures, whatever the occupation of a person in the community is, farmer, fisherman, metalsmith, house builder, and so on, they will surely endow them with much art and design. Whether they are making a comb, jewelry, ornament, utensils, farm implements, or boats, lalagyan nilang art and design yan. This is the way of our traditional indigenous and folk Filipinos. The result is an amazing diversity and exuberant design concepts and forms. Next slide. The practice of art is for everyone. In particular, the practice of art and functional creativity is not confined to the specialist alone, but is for everyone. Thus, there are also no special venues or spaces for artistic and other creative activities because they occur wherever and whenever there is human activity. The aesthetic makes everything attractive and marketable. There is nothing more attractive and keeps us interested than beauty. Making everything artistic heightens its value, making it very marketable. The immense popularity of Apple products is due to its elegance and beauty, having been designed by Steve Jobs, who enrolled in calligraphy classes. Also note how attractive Japanese packaging is. Oftentimes, you will buy a Japanese product just because of its beautiful packaging. Next slide, please. Art in our culture is integrated with everyday life. Work becomes a creative challenge and saves people from envy, meaninglessness, and promotes health. Being integrated with everyday life, art utilizes a greater range of materials, forms, techniques, and ideas, or whatever is available, for engaging in productive or creative work, allowing for wider and democratic social participation. Look how creative our traditional cultures are. Next slide, please. Gold tradition. How handle this? So look at this. This is but coconut grated kultura ng nyog. In our traditional culture, because everybody is an artist, lalagyan ng art yung kanyang gamit. Maski isang magsasaka, a farmer will make his plow artistic. One who grates the coconut will make his coconut grater as artistic as well. Ito ay coconut grater, pangkain ng nyog, among di Maranao. Next slide, please. This is just a tobacco container. Walang nakakaligtas. Lahat ng bagay sa pang-araw-araw, kasi lahat ay artist. Kung yung gamit nyo, gagawin yung art. Okay? This is very good for them. These are just tobacco containers among the Maranao. Next slide, please. Patungan lang ng kulintang. Next slide, please. Patungan ng kulintang sa ceremony of design. Kulintang. And another kulintang set in the National Museum. Look at the beam ends of the Maranao Torogan. Look at how beautiful they are. Next slide, please. And the dresses, how ornate. Next slide, please. Weaving traditions. Yes, malong of Maguindanao. The mat. This is bilaan mat, no? Bilaan mat from Sarangani. Banig lang yan. Sama mat of the Bajau. The Bajau are among the best mat makers in the country. Next slide, please. And this is from Palis, Pampanga, Metalist meeting from Palis, Pampanga, yes. And this one. The next one, Parol from San Fernando. Yes, Parol from San Fernando. And so, Filipino values, ideas, and concepts can be a good basis for design principles in contemporary life. Harnessing them and affirming their importance is to showcase Filipino identity and dignity to design. Filipinos have what traditionally expressed their kapwa in the many design concepts that I have shown you. So with this, I hope you can have other alternatives for realizing kapwa through your design concepts. Thank you very much. Maraming pong salamat sa inyo.
Okay. I couldn't keep up with the speed of Prof's brain, but I am so excited with everything that he shared, especially on how our values are translating into design, right? Do you agree? So it's like typing away all of my notes, but later, don't worry, we will summarize some of the key insights from Prof. Felipe's talk. But some aspects that we noted here, just give me a moment. It was quite overwhelming. Not quite, it was overwhelming. It was overwhelmingly good for the nerd in me specifically. So thank you so much again, Prof. Felipe, for that very informative and enlightening talk on kapwa. It really piqued our interest in the way pakikisama is different from pakikipagkapwa. Because unlike pakikisama, pakikipagkapwa has no negative connotation and doesn't treat the other as outside of himself, which very much links to our theme, we more than me. We are interdependent, we are highly relational and communal beings grounded on the culture of common good. And another important point that we found really interesting is that the idea that pakikipagkapwa in Filipino design practice translates to using interweaving of colors instead of monolithic ones. The expression of art that doesn't fragment the forms, but in a way respects. So all of these really use highly tactile textures also in our designs that refrain from fragmenting our human figures, and ultimately in striving for multi-significance by putting everything together without losing the spirit and essence of a thing. Again, thank you very much for that insightful lecture, Prof. Felipe. Later, with your questions, we can bring them up and ask Prof. Felipe further insights and clarifications on the things that he discussed. Okay, so for now, we are going to be having a 15-minute break. To maximize our time, we would like to kindly ask everyone to participate in our Mentimeter, which will be shown on the screen. There we go. So on the screen is a QR code, which will lead you to mentimeter.com. I'm sure you're all familiar. And if you're having a hard time accessing the QR code, you may also visit the menti.com and use the code that's flashed on the screen. Now, as you settle into our Mentimeter, I want you all to answer this question. In one word, what do you want to redesign with Kapwa in mind? And after the break, we will flash your answers on the screen and we'll carry that over to our discussions later. So, 15-minute break starts now. for everyone who are still outside, may I call everyone back? We're about to start in 1 minute. Okay, shall we settle down? Okay, welcome back to the session. And as we move on to our next speaker, let me remind everyone again to please feel free to post IDX conversations, we more than me, experience using our official hashtags. That's hashtag WIDD 2025, hashtag Let's Get Ethical, hashtag IDX Conversations, and hashtag IDX 2025. Make sure also to tag our social media pages. Now, we're all ready for our keynote speaker. Can design, driven by innate Filipino core value of kapwa, nurture our country's national and global competitiveness? Our keynote speaker will enlighten us on that. This speaker is a passionate advocate for the transformative role of creativity in driving business growth, breakthrough innovation, and sustainable development, as well as societal improvement and cultural enrichment. As the founder and president of the Creative Economy Council of the Philippines, he has dedicated himself to advancing the Philippine creative industries and the broader creative economy. He also played a key role in shaping the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act, which aims to position the country as a global creative powerhouse. He was also the first Filipino graduate and valedictorian from the Berlin School of Creative Leadership MBA program. Let us all welcome to the IDX stage our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Paolo Mercado.
Thank you, Carla. To the De La Salle College of St. Benilde officers, Chancellor Ben Ong, Vice Chancellor Angelo Lacson, Dean Harvey Vasquez, and Chairperson Romeo Katap, thank you for welcoming us here to this wonderful campus. DAC co-chair, of course, ED Rea from the Design Center of the Philippines, DAC co-chair Mylene Abiva, the wonderful Professor Felipe De Leon, and of course, Secretary and TESDA Director General Kiko Benitez. So thank you. So I'm here to share with you the work that we've been doing for now close to a year on the first national design policy. There we go, yay. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to make this as interactive as possible. Okay, so first of all, let me start with this one. And most of you here are industrial design students. But when you say design, what is design? You know, I'm not going to call on you or raise your hand, but oftentimes, you know, just to be very quick about it, oftentimes we think of design objects. And I've seen your displays outside, and a lot of your attention is on that. Ergonomics, functionality, aesthetics, etc., how we interact with design objects. But there's also the placemaking part of design, you know, architecture, landscape design, you know, environmental design. So that's really important. There's image making, and image making, from graphic design to branding, etc., and then experience. And most of the time, experience now is defined very much in UX and UI design. So these are, let's say, the functional design disciplines. And if you Google best of Filipino design, so the designs of Kenneth Cobonpue and other world-class designers like Neil Felipe also come out very much. So we have this tendency to really look at design from the commercial or the aesthetic side of it. But also, if you Google Philippine design, what is the other thing that you tend to find? Unfortunately, it's not always this side, but it's also this. Design fails, and that is, and everyone knows this story about the PWD ramp that was not designed for a PWD person. And I took this social media post excerpt because it was so clear that it called this out as a failure in design, and it mentions design twice. So there has to be a role of design beyond just image making, place making, object making, and experience making from just a digital context, making a better app. There needs to be a role of design in creating a livable place for people. So this was the ambition that we set forth when we did the work on the national design policy, that we wanted to unleash the transformative power of design in the Philippines that cultivates a future where Filipino innovations flourish, global impact is realized, social transformation is enabled, and future generations are empowered to create a brighter tomorrow. I emphasize innovation because oftentimes we look at design as just the aesthetic part, but actually every innovation at the core is a design solution. So we also articulated 4 key things, let's say visions for the future. That while this is a 5-year action plan, we want to set the foundations for something that we want to see in the next 10 years. 10 years from now, by 2035, we want to see the Philippines as a design powerhouse in Southeast Asia, with Philippine design goods, services, and ideas serving as major exports. So we still have an economic impact objective here. And we want this to be a significant contributor to the economy. Second, we want design to be a best practice in business, especially MSMEs. By adopting design thinking, we want design to fuel Filipino innovation and innovative thinking, na hindi lang pagkokopya, pero paggagawa ng bago, to create new things. Third, we want every department in the Philippine government and LGU to have a design mindset, or maybe even a design department, so that good design is not just a private sector endeavor, but it becomes a public sector practice as well. Communities in the Philippines is something that we also want to see at the very community level, that Filipinos are empowered through design to make better decisions for their own communities and local areas regarding housing, climate change, disaster recovery, and community development. And last but not least, that we want original Filipino ideas to inspire and galvanize the succeeding generations to design, create, and innovate for a better future overall. So in short, our policy mission is not just for the design sector itself and for having them create exports that grow the economy. That's an important part of it. But we want design to be something that impacts society as a whole for social good and also become integral as part of our culture. From an economic point of view, we're starting from a very good base. Rea and the team did this study in 2023 called Design Counts, and it counted the value of the design economy, not just design businesses, but the output of design and its contribution to the Philippine economy. And it is 1.2 trillion pesos in value, and that is generated by 700,000 jobs. So it is actually quite significant. If you compare it, it's actually quite comparative to the BPO sector. contribution to the economy. So it's significant already that design contributes so much to jobs, but to added value. But we want more, not only from an economic point of view, but also from a values point of view. A key part of what we want to adopt. So some of you may have seen this already, but I just want to reiterate because we intend to implement it and measure it. This is called the design ladder. In fact, it's the extended design ladder. It was developed by the Design Council of the Danish Design Council more than 20 years ago, in fact, in 2025. And it's mainly the first 4 levels where they wanted to see how deeply do businesses embed design in the way they work. So level 1 is design is not even part of their corporate language. Level 2 is design is aesthetics, palamuti, decoration in the end. Level 3 is it's part of the process. Oh, we have a new product, we have to adopt design thinking into that. So it's a workflow for them. Level 4 is where, no, design is core to our business strategy. Without design, we have no business. That's Apple, by the way. That's a level 4 type of design as a strategic business advantage. We want to take it further, and the Australian Design Council actually took it further to 2 other levels, which is design is not just for business, it is there to create systemic change at a societal level and at the highest level that it is valued by every citizen in the country. That's design as culture. It becomes part of your values. So we are making this part of measuring the impact of the design policy as we implement it. So this is a key part. And as mentioned quite a few times already, the impact is fourfold. The people who work in the design sector, what most of you will be in the near future as designers coming into the workforce, that design sector will impact both private sector in business, and the public sector is what we hope also in better policies and programs. And then at the end of it, the benefit is to the consumer or the end user or the general public. So it's a fourfold impact that we have. Professor Felipe had spoken magnificently on values. I would just like to emphasize, and it was a hard choice, to really select what are the values that will inform and guide the national design policy. What was definitely almost a no-brainer is that kapwa needs to be at the core. Quite recently, maybe about 5-6 years ago, Don Norman, who is one of the icons of design in the world, he actually came up with the term of humanity-centric design. And interestingly, the definition is it's designing not just for the individual, which is at the core of human-centric design thinking. You empathize, but you empathize with the individual need, and then you design. Humanity-centric design takes it a step forward. You design for the community that the individual is in, and you're designing systems changes and not just individual experience or product changes. And it was very funny that they are coming to an insight that apparently has been with Filipinos for millennia already. So kapwa at the core is important. Part of that and integral to that is malasakit, that deep sense of empathy that we have. And I do think we take a stand here against somebody like Elon Musk who says that empathy is a weakness. No, empathy is a superpower. And it is a Filipino superpower, and we have to lean into it. It is not a weakness. May puso, designing with heart, designing with passion. We are not cold designers. We are colorful, we are emotional, and we are put all of our emotions and our passions in our design. Malikhain, striving to not just copy, but to create new things. Madiskarte, knowing that we are not a country of abundance, but oftentimes a country of scarcity, and that resiliency is a value, and that ingenuity is something that we must put in our design. Mabusisi, that tactile dimension that Professor Felipe was mentioning, that it is something that we need to put in our designs, and definitely a striving to be the best. design excellence, mahusay. Now, I'm not going to go through all the details of the design policy, but I would invite you to remember, whoops, it's getting quite ahead of it. Okay, there we go. I invite you to remember just 5 times 2. The design policy, the action plans are 5 themes that you have here. The create recognition, elevate global competitiveness, embed design in business, infuse design thinking in policy making, and develop design as a national skill set and mindset. And for every theme, there are 2 key actions. And this is what will drive the programs and plans and that will be happening in the next 5 years, moving towards the bigger vision of becoming a country that embraces design, not just in business for growth, but also in public policies for systemic change and ultimately in adopting a design culture. So let me go through the themes at the high level. Number 1, create recognition and pride. That's the important term. Recognition that, uy, Filipino yan. Uy, proud ako dyan. That's a Filipino design, and I am proud of that. Key activities that will be happening here, and as already mentioned by Edie Rea, we are bidding for the World Design Congress in 2027, but also as part of those activities is launching the Year of Filipino Design starting this year, flowing into next year. The other part of it is that where can you find the best of Filipino design today? What place can you go to that showcases the very best of Filipino design? Anyone? Where? Manila Fame, a temporary event. That's the point. You can only see it in temporary events, whether in Manila Fame, Artefino, etc. So our goal here is we need for design to have a permanent home, where if you want to see the very best of Philippine design, objects, image making, etc., there's a place for that, and there's a place that nurtures that. So this is something that we have been proposing for the last few years now, and we're hoping that that we are able to create this. But wait for it. It's one of the more bold propositions. The second one is global competitiveness, of course. This is the design practitioners themselves. So here, there's a basic part of it is where are they now? Where do they want to go? How to get there? That sort of road mapping and business planning for fashion design, for furniture design, for even graphic design, where actually there are a lot of freelancers in the Philippines servicing global markets, but it's not an organized group doing that. So how can we scale design capabilities? There are a lot of freelance architects as well, whose designs become, they're not recognized that they were the architect because they are working for international architectural firms to do that. But anyway, so that's the other thing. We need to know and accelerate the design sectors and prioritize how we do that. Number 4 is we need to be famous for something. But when you say Filipino design, what does that mean? And this strategic action 4 is putting a stake on the ground that what we want to be known for is to be the global center of expertise for tropical design beyond lifestyle. So lifestyle, yes, that you want the best in tropical wear or tropical furniture, the Philippines is the only place to go. We want that, of course, but we want to go beyond it also. We want to be experts in tropical resiliency, sustainability, regeneration, etc. And part of that is the establishment of a global center of expertise for tropical design, which we ambition to do in partnership with DOST. Priority area 3 is to embed design for business transformation and acceleration. This is the one where it's not just about doing packaging. While packaging design is very important, that's a first step because it is displaying the goodness inside in a way that is attractive outside, but going beyond that as well in terms of embedding design thinking and a mindset of innovation in business, And strategic action 5 is actually providing at a more local level these service hubs where small businesses in the provinces are able to access the best of design thinking and design services as well, that it's not just all NCR based. Priority area 4, perhaps getting to the bolder aspects of the policy, is infusing design thinking to modernize policy making. And we ambition to do this at a national level and at an LGU level. We know that this is quite a heavy task, but the idea is to do it first with a pilot lab on the national level, on really prototyping with a policy lab using design thinking to develop more citizen-centered public services and policies, that we will select use cases, examples, implement, and really lead by example rather than by top-down implementation. But also embedding that not just in national level, but also in LGUs, where allowing LGUs to really understand and see how do you solve problems from a design thinking point of view, and how do you design the solution, implement, monitor, and improve. So everything that we know, that you guys know and study here, how can we implement that in the public sector as well? Last but not least, and this is the longest term impact of all, is that it has to become a national skill set, mindset, and I wanted to add a word, pero mahaba na, heart set as well. That design is in the heart of every Filipino. So key strategic actions here is who's going to deliver all of those design thinking programs? Who are the trainers for this? So actually strategic action number 9 is that we have to train the trainers, that we have to develop a group of people who will go to not only the small MSMEs in NCR and LGUs, but also those in the provinces who will teach, who will localize design thinking, who will perhaps bridge the things that Professor Felipe talked about in terms of design being integral to Filipino culture, and then sharing that with all of the impact audiences that we want to hit. So that's strategic action 9, and strategic action 10 is actually, you guys are very lucky that you're getting design and design education at a college level, but design should actually be happening at a K-12 level, And that's the most ambitious of all, because it is something that needs a lot of input and a lot of push, because still many parents today think of design, drawing lang yan, art lang yan, walang pera sa drawing, walang pera sa art. I'm sure many of you resonate with that when you told your parents that you were going to go into design. So the key is that, no, we have to change that value mindset, that design is core, that design is valuable, and that design creates impact. So that's it in a nutshell, actually, that 5x2 framework, 5 themes, 2 actions per theme. That's the national design policy, but the key is how do we implement and create impact? So the key is this, really, the core message, and I come back to it. While the policy will help promote and grow the world-class design talent, products, services that comes out of the Philippines, we ambition to go beyond it. We must champion good design for the greater good of all Filipinos. Because really, design fails cannot become a cultural norm for us. That standards in building things, and this is not only public sector, private sector is guilty as well. The upper images, that's public sector. The design of pedestrian pathways, the fact that EDSA prioritizes vehicles and not people. And you can see that in that image very clearly. But Torre de Manila, that's private sector. It was allowed by the LGU, but it was private sector who didn't care and built it for their own needs. And the rape of Boracay, that's private sector. That's greed, getting in the way. Yan ang walang malasakit. Where you kill the goose that lays the golden egg. by destroying the environment. So those are the things that we need to fight against. Good design must fight against this and not just be something for aesthetic purposes. Good design must become a design policy, must make good design a right for all and not just a luxury for some. So that's my quick overview of the national design policy, and thank you very much.
Again, that was Sir Paolo Mercado. Now, just a few insights from what he talked about. It's very exciting. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. And these questions we'll reserve for our discussions later because it is a very interesting topic for all you young designers out here who'll be benefiting from the national design policy as it gets implemented. Oops. Hold on, let me just... Give me a quick moment. Okay, so having a national design policy is important indeed, and I strongly agree that design fails cannot be a cultural norm for us. So thank you very much for that great, discussion, Sir Paolo. I'm particularly moved by the idea that the government is setting a very firm foundation in the next 10 years to use design strategically to create a livable place for Filipinos and to improve the lives of Filipinos. Kudos to that. And of course, it's truly about informing the national design policy with Kapwa consciousness that can be a powerful framework in realizing and actualizing design's potential in effecting positive transformation and pushing for our country's national development goals. This five-fold action plan that you shared sounds promising because of the concrete actions that are planned to be executed in the next 5 years for the Philippines to adopt a design-driven culture. We are particularly interested in the Designing Our Future Society program for LGUs and the Future Design Skills Training for Higher Education and Technical Education, which will link to our next speaker. So again, thank you very much, Sir Paolo, for emphasizing that good design is right for all and not just a luxury. All right, so let's do a quick warm-up, shall we? Because there's a lot of input there and very exciting. So can I request for everyone to stand up? Maybe we can all take a deep breath together. Yes. Shake your legs, shake your arms. All right, so let's take a deep breath through our nose. Hold it for a moment and exhale slowly in 3, 2, 1. All right. Great work, everyone. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Now, we are heading to our third and last speaker, who is an educator and a public servant. He served as a representative of the 3rd District of Negros Occidental from 2019 to 2024 and was a member of the 2nd Congressional Commission on Education. He is the principal author of landmark laws, including RA number 11899, which created the EDCOM 2, and RA 11904, which aims to strengthen creative industries. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, Director General Secretary Kiko Benitez.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Thank you, Carla, for that introduction. I'd like to give my respects, first of all, to greet Executive Director Ria Matute, Deputy Executive Director Lucky Lopez of the Design Center of the Philippines, Thomas Garvey of the World Design Organization, Dean Harvey Vasquez of the De La Salle School of Environment and Design, to my fellow speakers and panelists, Professor Felipe de Leon, and the ever inspiring Paolo Mercado, And to all our partners, our collaborators, and change makers, no, present today and listening. Isang malikhain at magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Congratulations to the Design Center of the Philippines. Ang ganda ng at timely na talakayang ito. Thank you for bringing designers, creatives, students, and policymakers together to talk about something we don't always get to talk about enough. But such as how can design shape not just our economy, but also our society and our culture? How can it be about, in fact, designing quality of life? And what I really appreciate is how this conversation is grounded in values, in Filipino values, na hindi lang ito tungkol sa galing or aesthetics, pero sa design na may puso, may malasakit, may saysay, design na marunong makipagkapwa. Design that is in fact proudly Filipino, but also ready to stand on the world stage. And this is in fact a shift in the mindset that I'm glad to be seeing today. And that's why I also want to thank the Design Center for helping us in TESDA reimagine what technical vocational education and training can become in the age of creativity and cultural resurgence. It is that design and through design and creativity that we can leapfrog actually from the second, third, and fourth industrial revolution to the fifth, as we move from a knowledge economy to an affective and attention economy to one that is creative and human-centric innovation economy. Kilala po ang TESDA in training people to work with their hands. But now with the help of the Design Center, we hope to make clear that it also includes the heart and the mind, and not just of the individual, but of community building and community formation as well. We are moving from training for skills and teaching people how to produce towards actually teaching them how to imagine, how to solve problems, and how to create value that is rooted in their culture, community, and identity. Design thinking, after all, teaches us that to solve complex problems in this VUCA world, we must begin not with answers, but with questions. And questions grounded, in fact, on empathy and community. That means understanding the needs, aspirations, and contexts of people before designing or proposing solutions. And this is the very heart of what ethical development should look like. Because in this new economy, creativity is not just for artists or designers. It's the mindset. And when our welders, our weavers, our coders, our hairdressers, our farmers start to think like designers, when they begin to see challenges as opportunities and work as a form of expression, that's when real transformation happens. Because our Filipino concept of kapwa, as Dr. De Leon has discussed and has been discussing, in fact, for quite a while, is not abstract. It is an actionable mindset that we can integrate into our development initiatives to ensure that development, in fact, has an address, a site, a place, and development has a face, has a specific person or community involved. That it is, in fact, ultimately about people and communities and the quality of their lives and the culture that binds them together. Kapwa is a call to design our policies and training with malasakit, to create them in such a way na may puso, to be malikhain, madiskarte, to build with care, mabusisi, and to do all this with excellence or mahusay. I would like to remind and suggest to all of us that TVET is actually a type of learning. It is not a trade. that at heart has three components. The first, it's hands-on, using tools and technologies as a way to relate to the world. Second, it is at base experiential embodied learning. And third, it is experiential embodied learning that is kinesthetic and based on practice with repetitive cycles, so that in fact over time and through practice one improves. That is why design thinking fits actually so naturally into TESDA's evolving mission. Because what is TVET if not a platform to design better things and better lives? Through making and creating things and reiterating the process of making, of designing, we respond to the changing terrains of a complex system and the problems that we are trying to solve. Some of you may know that before I was appointed to TESDA, I served as the congressman of the 3rd District of Negros Occidental, as I was introduced. And I'm proud to say that even then, we were already thinking about how to support the creative economy structurally. During the height of the pandemic, I worked with Congressman Toff de Venecia and the designer of the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act, Mr. Paolo Mercado, who actually instructed the entire Economic Affairs Committee of Congress what a creative industry actually is and was. I worked with them in the long and meticulous process of crafting the Creative Industries Development Act. We made sure that every domain was represented because we knew that creativity was not a niche, but it was the soul of the Filipino economy. Creativity, understood as kapwa and malasakit, is the competitive advantage of a Filipino. That law gave birth to the Creative Industries Development Council and the Creative Industries Development Office under the DTI, and the flagship initiatives like Malikhaing Pinoy and Tatak Pinoy, which again at base is designed for and as pakikipagkapwa. In the 19th Congress, we also passed the new Heritage Act into law, which now mandates all LGUs to conduct cultural mapping, giving them both the responsibility and the opportunities to take ownership as well as take stock of their local heritage. This includes not only the preservation of built heritage structures and landmarks, but also intangible heritage, our songs, our stories, our ways of thinking and doing, our rituals, our languages, our culinary traditions, and other cultural expressions that define who we are as Filipinos. We also filed for the circular economy framework to create a more green economy and to push what is now in TESDA called a green TVET transition. At the heart of all of this, of course, is, as already been mentioned by Paolo, creative placemaking. The idea that we can transform our ordinary places into thriving hubs of creativity, culture, and commerce. Because at the heart of it, what we're really trying to do is help communities tell their stories, reclaim their spaces, and turn those spaces into centers of culture, creativity, and identity. And to have a manifestation, if you like, of the aspirations for a kind of quality of life that all Filipinos deserve. Creative placemaking means that development doesn't just come from the outside. It's rooted in local voices, local materials, and local heritage. It is how we make sense of where we live and the communities of which we are a part. And a crucial part of creative placemaking is, after all, education and training. And this is where TESDA and our LGUs come in. In TESDA, we have what we call area-based and demand-driven TVET. Our communities and our local governments need to first ask, ano ba ang meron sa atin? Ano ba ang ating cultural assets, creative strengths, and local industries? Only then can we prioritize, invest in, and develop the kinds of training that truly make sense, training that uplifts not just lives, but also identity and local pride. For example, our planning office has identified rising national demand for creative sector programs like visual graphic design, weaving, beauty care services, photography, events management, and so on. But of course, these may not be the priority skills needed in Palawan or in Davao or in any specific locality. That's why localized skills mapping for us is essential, so that we know what each region actually needs and what each region can actually offer. Equally important is working closely with industry partners. Sila ang tunay na nakakaalam kung ano ang kailangan nila sa industriya, sa field. And through our industry TVET boards, we co-create training regulations and curricula aligned with real-world creative practice. So far, we've established, among others, for example, the Printing Industry Board Foundation. The Animation Council of the Philippines is an industry TVET board. The Game Developers Association of the Philippines. And soon we are launching new boards for fashion and for furniture. But we need more, obviously. And we need you, your expertise, your insights, your voice, so we can shape training that truly supports the creative economy. Kaya excited po talaga ako with our potential still, EDRIA, partnership with the Design Center, which I really hope we can sign next week, 2 weeks from now. I am glad that the Design Center is just as eager to collaborate with us on establishing a skills framework for design. Sana maplansya na natin lahat ng detalya so that we can in fact move forward. With a skills framework for the design industry, we'll be able to identify what jobs are out there, what skills are in demand now, and what will be needed in the future. Importante ho sa TESDA ang skills framework, hindi lang dahil sa TESDA, kundi ang skills framework rin ang magiging basihan po ng aming alignment with K-12 and with CHED. This way, everyone from artists to employers can speak the same skills language. It'll help us to train better, work smarter, and make Filipino creatives even more competitive on the global stage. I am also very excited that the Design Center will help us integrate both design thinking and systems thinking into our training framework. When pushed through, these approaches will be piloted in our soon-to-be established regional training and innovation centers, which will be in every region in the country. And we are also looking into micro-credentials for design across all skills and industrial domain, so that we have a sense of the disruptive and innovative capacity of design thinking in improving skills training, product design, process design across the country. Kasi hindi lang ito dagdag na subject sa training. It is about rethinking how we teach, how we build our curriculum, and how we co-create our communities. Right, to give a concrete example, we are developing modular training programs where learners working on furniture making, for example, won't just learn how to create furniture. They'll be guided through a design thinking process where they identify a community need, ideate solutions, and prototype sustainable options for furniture. This kind of fusion of hands-on learning with creative and critical thinking is what we wish to disseminate across many sectors. We also plan to launch programs that explore sustainable design, green TVET, circular economy principles and regeneration, and culturally rooted innovation aligned with the standards set, in fact, by the NCCA and DTI. We will be embedding intellectual property rights modules in all design-related TVET courses, so our learners, especially artists and creators, understand how to protect their work, as recommended, in fact, by Mr. Paolo Mercado. We are exploring micro-credentials in creative fields. Dahil ang bilis ng takbo ng creative world ngayon, may AI na, for example. Kung ano-anong digital tools ang lumalabas, tapos todo agawan pa ng atensyon sa social media. Kung artista ka, kailangan mong sumabay at hindi madaling makipagsabayan sa AI. The question is, how do we keep pace? How do we stay relevant? How do we understand it as a tool, and one for which or into which human creativity and community building is still its ethical direction? One smart answer is micro-credentials. Think of them like Lego blocks, bite-sized learning that is quick, focused on skills in areas like editing, animation, design, digital design, music production. In TESDA, these micro-credentials could be a unit of competency, a cluster of competencies, or even a full training regulations, leading to certificates of achievement, certificates of training, certificates of competencies, or a national certificate. The real power of micro-credentials lie in what I call the 3 S's: speed, stackability, and seamlessness. We hope our new micro-credentials program will help creatives stay sharp, stay current, and stay in the game, especially for gig economy freelancers, self-employed creatives, and people who are in between formal jobs but want to keep on growing and keep on learning. Micro-credentials can help us in our harmonization with DepEd and CHED, as well as help push lifelong learning even outside the formal education system. They are helping us ladderize and embed skills clearly and provide seamless exits and entrances for career pathways and progressions. And they are helping us combine the Philippine qualifications framework with the Philippine skills framework for a clearer lifelong learning journey. And in a way, this is part of transforming skills and mindsets towards creativity and embedding design as a culture across the country. So higit sa lahat then, we are expanding our curriculum to include indigenous crafts and intangible heritage. Not to lock these traditions in a museum, but to let them breathe, grow, and evolve through education and training. For example, we are partnering with Patis Tesoro to offer dressmaking and embroidery training for Filipinos in slow fashion, to create traditional barot sayas using local textiles like abaca, pinya, and husi with natural dyes. In Mindoro, we are working hand in hand with 4 Mangyan tribes through a co-collaboration on basketry and weaving. This is not a one-sided approach where TESDA teaches, nor is it about copying indigenous techniques. Rather, it is a mutual partnership. We aim to strengthen traditional weaving practices, not by replacing their ancestral methods, but by enhancing quality and durability while preserving the full cultural integrity of their craft. In Bohol, we are collaborating with the Eskaya community in a co-teaching model. They are teaching us their native script, language, and oral history, while we support them with basic literacy, numeracy, and the comprehensive documentation of the Eskaya language. It's a two-way learning process grounded in respect, inclusion, and cultural empowerment. All of these, I believe, are living examples of kapwa in action, co-creating communities, not for them. And it's about walking alongside, listening deeply, and building together. Because ultimately, our goal is to empower the next generation, not just to preserve heritage, but to carry it forward with empathy, creativity, and education at the core. Because this, in the end, is our competitive advantage on the global stage. Policies alone, however, are not enough. Programs, government programs alone are not enough. Industry boards alone are not enough. As has already been repeated many times this morning, we need a new kind of mindset to truly bring these policies, programs, and partnerships to life. And that mindset is exactly at heart what design thinking demands: to be able to iterate and involve users, in our case, learners, artisans, employers, and communities, into everything that we create. Policy and training that is inclusive, participatory, sustainable, environmentally sustainable, and deeply human centered. Because as we co design these programs, we are reshaping what it means to be a skilled Filipino creative in the 21st century. Design thinking reminds us to listen deeply, define clearly, ideate boldly, prototype quickly, test, learn, improve, and always, always return to a user. This is, in fact, the cycle of experiential learning. After all, skills in the 21st century are not just for employment, but for empowerment, for identity, and for nation building. So let us design a future that is ethical, inclusive, sustainable, and full of malasakit. Design for a future for our pakikiisa, pakikipagkapwa. Let us put the human and the human community at the center of our systems, and creativity at the core of our development and social transformation. That will be the Filipino promise to the world in terms of our contribution to a global creative economy. Let us build a society where every community is empowered to tell its own story, to provide and shape processes, images, forms, objects that define what and who we are, because, as they say, we is greater than me. Where every artisan, designer, and creator has a place in shaping our shared future. Walang imposible, basta tulong-tulong. And like we always say in TESDA, basta't sama-sama sa TESDA, kayang-kaya. Maraming maraming salamat po at mabuhay ang malikhaing Pilipino.
Thank you very much. Again, that was Secretary Kiko Benitez, the Director General of TESDA. What a remarkable talk, and definitely promising. I don't know if you're realizing all of the things that you're hearing, because the things that Sec Kiko mentioned is your future. We deeply resonate with your insight, Sec Kiko, and your conviction that design na marunong makipagkapwa is a design that is truly Filipino. And we also agree that design is not just for the creatives, but really an actionable mindset that we can inculcate to common people to work towards a shared goal of positive transformation here in the Philippines. It is also a good thing that the talk addressed challenges in the current educational system and how technical skills and higher educational skills, when embedded in Kapwa, can be a powerful tool to help Filipinos experience embodied learning, which is more effective kind of learning. A perfect venue to talk about this, of course, we have the program chairs of the different programs in De La Salle, St. Benilde. So it's definitely something that we can all work towards. And lastly, creative placemaking was a very interesting idea that was brought up because implementing such concept will turn ordinary places into creative hubs that every Filipino community deserves. Education, indeed, is fundamental in all of these are promising changes as these transformative endeavors necessitate trainings and learnings that we believe TESDA can effectively provide in cooperation with industry partners, of course, academe, government, the Science Center, of course. This is really Kapwa in action. Yes, Idiria was already, giving me instructions with her eyes earlier. So we have a lot of work to do, and we're very excited. Secretary Kiko Benitez, thank you very much. Again, a round of applause, please. Okay, now for everyone here, if you remember, we flashed on the screen a QR code for our Mentimeter. So for this session, we are going to revisit that QR code. I hope everyone was able to input. Yes? Yes? So we have a few answers. Let me just turn. Okay, so the question earlier was, how do you want to redesign with Kapwa in mind? So I'm gonna mention a few words, and maybe some of the people here in the audience would like to expound further. Number one is public transportation. I feel like there's such a lot of like hugot there for people in St. Benilde. Yes, I see a lot of nods. Can we call on these people who are nodding on the audience? Care to share why public transportation is what you chose to redesign with Kapwa in mind? Anyone? Perfect time to raise these issues. I remember when I was a student, public transportation was still a problem. So maybe this generation can change something, yeah? With the national design policy in place, can you imagine? Can I call on this guy in gray behind the camera? Yes, it's you. He's looking behind like, who is she calling? Yes, I see you with the ponytail. Yes. Stephanie, maybe give a tap to this person in front of you. Yes, it's you, sir. Could you share some insights why? Yes, you were nodding along. Shy.
Hi po.
Hi.
I'm so awkward. So I nodded along when you mentioned public transportation because that's how I get here every day. I know like one of the things that I've noticed about our public transportation is that it's always so overcrowded. Nakakalit naman tayo dito, no? Palaging crowded yung mga public transport natin. LRT, MRT, jeepney. Um, Not only that, it takes forever for the trains or for the vehicles to get in time. Like, kahit gaano kaaga kang umalis, you still arrive at 7:20 to 7:30. Parang konting time lang dumaan. So, one of the ways that I would like to redesign it is maybe, well, the best way to redesign it is to reinvent our way of thinking on how to get to places. Kasi we're so focused on having our own individual vehicles. That's nice. But our country has almost gone past its capacity to hold private vehicles. I think it would be a great step to move more towards public transport as the standard. Because not everyone can buy a vehicle and not everyone has the space to house a vehicle in the first place. That's why public transport is a great candidate for redesigning with the idea of Kappa in mind, not just for our benefit, but for everyone else.
I love that.
That's all.
Thank you. Can I get your name?
Harvey po.
Harvey. From what program?
ID po.
Industrial design. A perfect then avenue. You have your chairperson here. So may assignment ka na, I think, to research on. So definitely good points. I just want to highlight that you were really approaching it with empathy in mind, and the reframing is really good. Instead of obsessing over what's bad, you can like look at it in a very different light to solve problems. Thank you very much, Harvey.
Thank you.
Okay, another word that I see here. Well, everything else is somewhat, I see toilet. You guys unhappy with your toilets here? I also see public restrooms. Mount Kamuning. Mount Kamuning. What do you have an issue with, like Mount Kamuning? Clothes on the overpass. I hear an overpass. Maybe someone from the crowd would want to share. This beautiful lady in pink. Overpass. Microphone, please. Oh, there's a clap.
Yeah, it's a supplement for the Mount Kamuning. That's the ewan kung sino aakyat dun sa overpass na yun. It's really high. That's why they called it Mount Kamuning. And for years, ngayon lang napansin ni BBM na paltan yon. Yun. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, how do you think maybe College of St. Benilde could maybe contribute to that? As simple as idea generation, exchanges, conversations, these things, when reaching the right set of ears, could make a lot of difference, I believe. Okay, another one. And while I'm doing this, I'm actually waiting for our team to set up the stage. We are preparing for the conversations that follow. Yes? During break time. Okay, thank you very much. Another word, maybe the last word, I see here key holder. Key holder. Anyone from the crowd would want to share who typed in key holder? I feel like this is an industrial design student. Yes? You want to stay anonymous? Okay, maybe build better key holder designs. Yes. Okay. So to me personally, perhaps microphones, right? I specifically like that microphones now can be concealed. Like these are just magnets on your shirt. It could be prettier, I feel. So a lot of vloggers out there or those who are doing content for the Gen X and the Gen Zs, I'm sure you can relate. So I call on all of our industrial design students here. Maybe we can explore designing for content creators. So what are those products that can support their creative outputs? Yeah. And that is it for our Mentimeter. If you would like to share further, please don't be shy. Later on, we'll have another set of discussions. But in the meantime, we will no break. Okay, so please be patient. We will be closing the curtains as we set up. So if anyone else would like to share their insights, feel free. The right ears, again, like I mentioned earlier, are in this room. So if you have special requests and questions, you can raise it now. You know what? Maybe I could actually ask our panelists. Our previous speakers, we have an industrial designer in the house. We have Mr. Jude Tiotuico. Sir Jude, if there's anything that you'd like to redesign with Kapwa in mind, maybe care to share? Can we get a microphone to Sir Jude? Yes, I am putting you on the spot.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, what was the question?
If you are redesigning something with Kapwa in mind, what would you redesign?
With Kapwa in mind, it would be, for me, as a furniture designer, I'd like to maybe create something that is aesthetically great looking, but definitely for the handicap, like maybe a great looking compact wheelchair or whatever it is that would benefit the handicap, or maybe designing a nice cap for hairless heads like mine. No, that's just joking aside. But definitely for the handicap would be a great start. Because a lot of, like with me, my mom still lives with us, and it's such a challenge just to bring her, like, with us, going to the restaurants or everywhere that you'd want the family to be with. And sometimes it's a challenge to just bring in the wheelchair with you or whatever it is. There are some that are automated, same as in robotics. But again, if they can do compact and, nice phones that can be put in the pocket, not necessarily put in the pocket, the wheelchair in the pocket, but something that's very compact and very functional and multifunctional would be a great way of doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you're all familiar. That's Mr. Jude Tiotuico of Industria Edition. Can we give him a round of applause? Maybe future internship will be there to redesign those projects. So he will be joining us later as one of our reactors. So very exciting. And now that our stage is set up, please again allow me to welcome everyone to IDxConversations. We more than we. Mali. We more than me. So before we start the roundtable, may I kindly remind everyone to always put your phones on silent mode and avoid unnecessary distractions. So for those who have insights and questions, please jot them down first on your phones or your notebooks, because we would love to hear your voice and see you guys in the discussion in a bit. Now, allow me to call back on the stage our speakers, Mr. Felipe de Leon. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Mr. Paolo Mercado. And, of course, Secretary Kiko Benitez. Thank you. Now, joining our keynote speakers here on stage are two design leaders and visionaries who will share their insights on the three keynotes presented. For our first reactor, we have an outstanding and admirable leader who has made her mark in the field of business and Philippine educational robotics. Her passion and drive to innovate the business education landscape in the Philippines has garnered her numerous awards. She was also named as one of the 100 most influential Filipino women on LinkedIn in 2021 and was appointed as the first and only World Robot Olympiad ambassador to represent 66 member countries of the World Robot Olympiad. She also served as the jury chair of the 2024 Good Design Award Philippines and is currently appointed as the co-chair for the private sector of the Design Advisory Council of the Philippines. Please help me give a warm welcome to the IDX stage, Ms. Mylene Abiva. Up next, we have a champion of Filipino metalcraft hailing all the way from the furniture capital of the Philippines, Pampanga. Pushing the boundaries of what's possible for metal, he produced iconic furniture and accent pieces that earned him recognition and prestigious design awards. He is also the co-founder and creative director of Industria Edition, a manufacturing company known for bespoke handcrafted metal furniture from Pampanga, and has been in the furniture industry for more than 2 decades. Currently directing the company in pursuing its design aesthetic and approach to steel furniture. Between 2018 to 2023, he expanded into public sculptures, creating works like Entwined, Pahagon, Pagahon, and Lambat, which showcased his skills in material manipulation. Recently, he was one of the representatives of the Philippines in the prestigious Biennial Révélation in Grand Palais, Paris, France. Let's all welcome to the IDX stage, Mr. Jude Tiotuico. Okay, welcome everyone. I am very honored to be amongst you all and having these conversations. The what you shared earlier were really good, and I can see how it all aligns. So from Mr. Felipe de Leon, of course, to Sir Paolo Mercado and Secretary Kiko, these are things that are very important topics for us to be, bringing to the table. Whether you are a student, you are a faculty member, you are part of the academe, you're a designer, you're in policy, or you're in public service. So, can I just ask first, for Ms. Mylene Abiva, what is the role of the private sector in your perspective in the national pursuit of Kapwa-centric government?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to introduce what the Design Advisory Council is and what we stand for. We are the private and public sector that is involved in the formulation and implementation of Republic Act 10557, which is the Philippine Design Competitiveness Act, which is the mandate is to have Philippine products and services globally competitive and market responsive. Now, as to Kapwa, we are also generating the jobs of the 1.2 trillion in economic contribution, as well as 705,000 of our creative industry workers or employees. Now, I believe that Kapwa is important. It should be centric. Now, moving towards my hat as a person in innovation, I would like to say that we have to have education is a valuable enabler, and no more memory work. We should humanize our schools, and I think Kapwa starts from the very beginning, which is K to 12, as related by Secretary Francisco Benitez, that there should be a alignment of K to 12 or DepEd, CHED, and as well as TESDA. So I think it starts from there. Humanizing our schools, no more memory work, not really no more, but minimize the memory work, and inquiry-based learning. It should be so that design thinking can flourish even at a very young age. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mylene, because we're really talking about designing a more effective and efficient private sector, right, through Kapwa-centric development and innovation strategies. And I like that you mentioned how it links to what Secretary Kiko was mentioning earlier, that you're pairing your skills with working with your hands, but also developing critical thinking in order to, create a more holistic approach to learning, which pairs well with our educational system, which Prof. Felipe de Leon mentioned earlier, of how education can be improved with our familiarity with Kapwa. Perhaps I can turn that to you, Prof. Felipe. Our conversation earlier about the educational system now and how that can improve further by being familiar with our culture.
In our culture, education is communal. In other words, what one person knows, the other people also get to know them, because knowledge is shared. I give you the sinigang principle. There's a template, common template, all sinigang with a sour soup, the source of protein, meat, fish, or something, and then vegetable. But it's up to you what kind of vegetables you like, anong klaseng pang-asin. This is the kind of education we have in our cultural communities. Knowledge is shared. This template is shared, whether in art or in agriculture or in house building and other things. There are common templates that are shared. That's why everybody can be a participant. But in the westernized education that we have, this was influenced by the Industrial Revolution. There is a very, very strict division of labor, no? So that people now are divided in these disciplines, departments in the universities, and they hardly communicate with one another. In other words, one specialist cannot communicate with the other specialist. So knowledge cannot be shared across different disciplines. And this is the problem in education now. When a professional graduates, he becomes a specialist, licensed by the government, he takes a board exam and so on. After that, what does he do? This person takes more professional development courses. When you try to cultivation profession, what we call professional development, you're not thinking of society as a whole. You're only thinking of your own profession. So who thinks of society as a whole? There's none. Because every professional is only thinking of his own advancement. Unlike in a cultural community, where every person is multitasker and understand every other person. That's why there is a sense of community, and bayanihan is alive. There is no more bayanihan in our society now because of that kind of education, which is so narrow, so specialistic, and every person has no way to communicate with others. That's the kind of education that we are having now.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for sharing that, because earlier, when before everything started, we were talking on the side and how education now, to be very aware of your culture, how do you make sure that the young creatives will be able to have a strong sense of identity? And I could link this to Sec Kiko's speech earlier. You were mentioning how design thinking actually helps people think better and assess first everything within that system to be able to develop the right programs and trainings. So not immediately jumping, but really collaborating with your community in order to do that. Sec Kiko, you mentioned that there's work in the regions also. Do you see that translating what Prof was mentioning? Paano natin malolocalize yung approach natin to developing the right programs with the communities?
Ang hirap. No, honestly, mahirap. Because I think Prof. Felipe is correct, obviously. Our structures up to now are really based on a second industrial revolution model, right? The distinctions even between CHED and TESDA are very clear, right? We train the laborers, they train the owners and the managers, right? So that kind of division is a class one. It's not even a disciplinary one, which is what Dr. Felipe is talking about. So it's not actually that easy to come back and have a co-development, a real co-development model. In two ways, right? One is, in many cases, the local communities don't understand the value of what they have, right? Because the system is such that value gets generated and concentrated mostly in the cities, right? And based on this industrial revolution process that we have now. But all of that is changing. So at base, I think we need to think of it in terms of what creates value, where it comes from, to whom does it accrue, to whom is it useful, right? And that included in our conceptions of value and value production will need to be community relations, right? So, tayo ba ang nagdadala? Here's an example. Okay, a perfect example. In way before my time, TESDA had a project with weavers in Samar. There were these master weavers of banig, but they were all women in their 60s and 70s, right? So we wanted to preserve the weaving process and turn it into a national certificate in weaving, right? In that specific style. But TESDA, as a base and common competency, needs you to know how to measure, right? So mensuration is a basic premise. And these women didn't graduate elementary school, didn't think in terms of numbers. They did their weaving intuitively, in an embodied way, with no measuring, right? So, nag-away ngayon ang TESDA at sila. Kasi ang sabi originally nung TESDA is, hindi, kailangan natin silang turuan mag-measure. Diba? Bigyan natin ng ruler, bigyan natin ng, diba? But on the other hand, there was also a very clear awareness that these are master weavers who have been able to weave products nothing to do with what we call mensuration, right? So in the end, that's a balance that needs to be struck, right? What TESDA did was take out mensuration as a premise that they needed to know right? The new ones coming up maybe can be taught, but the masters are not the ones you're supposed to teach. They're supposed to teach you, right? So it's that kind of a balancing act that's very difficult to do, but one that is quite crucial, particularly with regards to local communities, right? To indigenous communities and so on and so forth, where the model of learning and sharing of knowledge is different, right? From the ways that we have literate-wise, right? It's encoded, it's measured, it's written down, versus something that is passed down through a process of apprenticeship. And all of that has value, right? So try to figure out where the value is.
Measurement will never work.
I know. I know.
Yes, actually, I remember earlier you also mentioned that there are areas that are very just innate to them, right? Intuitive, really, on how they do things. So it's our job as designers to actually understand them. You don't force a certain system on them, but really develop a kind of modality of learning.
I can suggest something. There should be a buffer zone, no? This has been a constant problem. We are talking about Bastay Summer, right? No?
Yes, sir.
This is our problem all over the country, especially with our intuitive craftsmen, artists, those who make tinalak and so on. They don't measure because, according to Einstein, intuition is more important than logic. Logic is measurement, but that's not the way. That's not the culture of our people. If you teach them logic, they will be paralyzed and they will not be productive anymore. So our policy is to leave the traditional weaver, no, or craftsman on her own. Just do what she likes to do, and we get one design that we like to commercialize. We ask somebody else, one who knows the tradition, to do the measurement, and then they can be mass produced. But don't bother the original artist. You should usually get one relative of the weaver. Okay, ikaw na hanap na pinakamagandang design niya, and then do the measurements and do the mass production. And that's the time that you can produce it for the market. That's the way we do it.
Which is exactly what happened in summer.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing both of that because in Design Center, we have a residency program and we work with MSMEs and artisans. The approach there is to an attempt to preserve and protect really these, these crafts, these local crafts. But at the same time, push for innovation and creativity. And I know that through the industrial design program of De La Salle St. Benilde, they also work with MSMEs as shared by Sir Romeo Katap here. Jude actually was one of our mentors in a residency run in Tabaco and Albay. And perhaps you can share what happened, like during that exchange with the artisans, how we were able to bring them to a point that they were willing to share and they were eager, really. I think because it's a mindset reframing. Yes, the tabak, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that was such an experience. And thank you, Design Center, for letting me be part of that. Anyway, the experience in the city of Tabaco in Bicol was a very memorable one for me. Besides the fact, it was a chance for me to work with Design Center. The thing about it was ED Ria was well elected me to be the creative director of that because of my expertise in metal. And the product that was their major product in tobacco then was tabak. It's the itak made of metal. So anyway, that's why I was part of that team. And then I was assigned with, I think, 3 designers from Design Center to work with me about that. So when we met in our office, in my showroom, I asked them concepts. What do you have in mind? What do you want to do for this MSME? So just show me everything and put together a deck of maybe some designs you'd want to do with that. Of course, researching of what they already did. So they turned up with a lot of nice concepts, nice designs. Even me, I tried my hand on drawing such designs that probably can be done. But at the end of the meeting, before we even took a trip to Tabaco City, I told them, you know what, guys, be prepared and don't be frustrated, because whatever we find out, the real action there in tobacco, we might not even be able to let them create these designs that we made. But we have to understand who they are first. So we may need to do designs like impromptu. So be very, very prepared for that. So lo and behold, when we saw and when we visited Tabaco City, you call them metal masters in doing itak, but they don't have welding machines. They don't have plasma cutters or whatever. They don't have anything that I already had in my factory. What they only had was a hammer and a panday system. A panday system is like, putting metal on fire and then hammer it at a certain temperature to mold it to form. Well, buti na lang, I still had that experience of using that. So we kind of put our heads together and told the team, you know what, guys, let's just see what they can do and immerse ourselves with the whole process of how they do things. And then now, after that, let's just try to inject bit by bit what we can with design. But now we cannot kind of give them a barrage of ideas because, just remember, these people are coming from the provinces and they're not used to seeing these modern designs that are, too out of this world from their point of view. So we had to kind of inject to them bit by bit some of the ideas we had. But then again, not forgetting their the start or their techniques. Another hurdle was still because of their basic acceptance of things. It's very hard to convince them to say, to do something different. They're very close-minded on things. So the only way to convince them was to maybe do an exhibition of it in the central town. And one more thing is to do at least one of the pieces in actuality. So in that whole setup, the team and I had to do it ourselves. We had to hammer it the way they do it with the technique. So sila, they knew how to panday it eh. But us, of course, dati tao ko lang gumagawa. Baglang ako ngayon ang martilyo doon eh. So we had to show them how it was done also in their own technique, showing a new design. And then they were like in awe because they found something different of what they are used to do. And then after that, we also told them, you know what? Design Center would help them brand this and even improve the packaging. So in the fiesta of that whole, in that whole process, we showed it in the central, in the church. Eh. Nakita nun tao, the whole product. It was packaged, it was exhibited, it was a finished product. Dun pa lang nila na-realize that they could bring this certain product into a better level. Not a better level, but a notch higher than they should. Tapos nung sinabi namin yung idea of price, which I cannot say now, nabigla sila that it can be sold at a very higher, at a higher price. And then we even showed it in SM after that. And they had, they had buyers for that. So the whole experience was, first, for us as designers is definitely we have to immerse, we have to understand. That's the basic principle as a designer. I always say that in my other talks. As a designer, we understand to create. We do not create to be understood. That's, I think, the basic difference of an artist and a designer. So for me as a designer, I want to design, or I want to understand before I design. And I think that's the main thing that would connect this whole thing with kapwa, or having that. Yun.
Thank you, Jude. I just want to highlight also that within that exhibition, we also highlighted the stories of the artisans because we wanted to give them a sense of pride and ownership to the craft, to show them the potential of what it could be, what it is, and where it could go through design. So we're very happy with that, and we're very happy to share also that we're doing more residency programs. Ms. Mylene.
I just want to add on to what we have just been discussing a few minutes ago. First of all, my son graduated here, industrial design at the College of St. Benilde.
Wow.
Yes, we're so proud of him. He did so well that he's now working out of the country, but he will be coming back, hopefully, yes. And I also want to inform everyone that I'm also the president of the College of Business, and we're starting a mentorship program within the De La Salle community on Filipinovation, where we can mentor you on the business aspects of design as part of the Department of Trade and Industry as well. We can do that. And one thing that actually struck me as a mother of a designer is that there is the economics of it. I'm sure our students here would relate that when you do a design, it has to be, you have to think, of the community as well as the economic benefits to you. You have to put value on your work. Unfortunately, my son did not. He made the chair and priced it at below cost, not thinking that it should be cost, it has to be priced much more because he put so much hours into it. So I think that's one of the takeaways I'd like, that there is an economic benefit to being an artist. And there's also pride because now it was displayed at one of the exhibits here at the Benilde. He made a clock that's made of bamboo. And another one is a chair, an ergonomic chair. It's still displayed at my office. So that's all I'd say, that in behalf also of the Design Advisory Council, is that we are here to mentor you on how to have a profitable business and to make your brand a global brand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mylene. I want to jump off from there. Let's talk about value. So 2 descriptions of value. We have value in terms of worth, and then value as the set of beliefs and principles that guide behavior. And these things were discussed earlier by Prof. Felipe and, of course, Sir Paolo here. And it translates now to the work that you do in private sector and also in public service. Perhaps let's start with Sir Paolo, no? Because we're talking about design excellence, being global, establishing and protecting identity through craft. When you talked about earlier the idea of having the Philippines as a center of excellence, it's a good conversation what we're having now because it's really grounding it on a grassroots level. Can you share with us this future that you're imagining on the NDP influencing where we are and what we're talking about?
It's a wide-ranging thing. Let me talk first, maybe one note on value. Value from a commercial sense versus the values that we've been talking about, which is all both equally important. I'm very struck actually by, I spent time in Cebu in November during their CCAD festival. There's a Visayan Arts Festival and the Bodega Design Caravan. And I talked to about 12 different designers, artists, etc., including Felipe, who became famous for the Crazy Rich Asians bag. And there's something that struck me really because they had the exhibit there of the Cebu Design Heritage, exhibition, and how they are trying to bridge from crafts to value products. And I think the Cebuanos and the Cebuano designers are really onto something. That their insight is, look, we cannot compete with China's industrial scale. We just cannot. We don't have the robotics, we don't have the for it. So our skill and craftsmanship is handmade. But being handmade means you are of very limited quantity. And also there is, as we've just talked about, also a limitation in standardization. Not everything can be the same. So the trick is not to force fit, okay, how do we scale up even greater than the machines of China, but rather how can we do something that what we create actually becomes more valuable to people. You know what the most non-standardized product is in the world, but is actually the non-standardization actually creates the value? Wine. French wines, also cheeses if you're into it. But French wine, the fact that what year is it? Ganyan. Oh, this was a good year, blah, blah, blah. What's the terroir? It's the variability and the artisanal nature of wine and the fact that even if it's the same brand, you don't get the same experience each and every time. That creates the value. So maybe there is something there in terms of articulate. So just as a background, I was a marketer and still am for years, and so for me, there is a story that we will need to be able to discover, articulate, and present to the world that, hey, yeah, the fact that it is not the same standard measure is the value, that you are getting something unique every time, and that that is only for you. And the fact this is handmade, it is not machine made, and there is value to that. So I think for me, that's the perspective I have on the value. The Cebu and some of the designers there are really onto something, and I think we need to lean into that more. It's the brand part, the storytelling that's really critical. Yeah.
Thank you, Sir Paolo. And it also connects to our level of commitment to do handicraft, right? Because there is value there. And of course, TESDA is really highlighting that. I love what you shared earlier with Ms. Patis Tesoro, because it's such a rare skill to have, but now it's really opening the doors for the younger generation to learn from an expert. Care to share more about who else you're looking into tapping?
No, I can't do that. There's a long list, right? But I wanted to say that part of Patis Tesoro's own insistence, the training is actually almost 6 months long. And it begins with drawing and designing to actually doing the embroidery, mostly with women cooperatives in the Laguna de Bay area. At the very end as well, there is a series of modules on entrepreneurship, right? The idea there is that the artisans, in many ways, own their own modes of production. It's themselves. So they need to understand themselves and their products as itself a potential enterprise, right? So she designed the sequence, right, that she wanted. There are others, but she's been the first one.
It's very exciting because it all connects to what we've been talking about, from craft to tradition, and then also linking it to business, and then creating value, as Sir Paolo mentioned. Prof. Felipe, you wanted to add something?
Of course. What you said is very interesting. When it comes to value added, that's really very important to talk about. And I'd like to really emphasize that the Filipinos, there are many surveys, we're really the most emotionally aware, very sensitive. So we are a very soulful people. That's why we're very good in music. Our choral groups are really the best in the world. better than the European ones, no? Or so no, there are different cultures. No? Chinese culture is very different. You know, Chinese culture is on the practical side. Marami sila eh. That's why they have to be very good in business, pottery, you know, and even acupuncture. The Germans naman, from the very beginning, the Germans emphasize sturdiness, stability. They won't like to fit everything in a very harmonious way so that everything lasts longer, but lasts for the lifetime, like Leica camera, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz. Kanya-kanyang henyo yan. Our genius is really the soulfulness of our people. That's why we can never impose mass production on the majority of our people. You know, Picasso, Manansala, all those great artists, when they do art, that's also craft, isn't it? You cannot be an artist without perfecting your craft. You have to know how to use colors, how to make paints, how to grind and materials. And so all art involves craft. But why do we call our Manilica and Bayan, our traditional artists, why do we call them craftsmen only? No? Because their forte is one-of-a-kind creativity. That's our comparative advantage. We don't, our traditional cultures don't mass produce, but it's really one-of-a-kind. Everything, every creation is unique. So every creation is a work of art. Because I was the one who I was in charge of establishing in 1993 the Manlilikan Bayan Award, the National Living Treasure Award. I was the one who first operationalized it in the NCCA. And from the very beginning, I have noticed that, you know, our indigenous people are unbeatable in extemporaneous creativity. They're really, I would like to say, they are the most creative Filipinos, the indigenous and the traditional peoples, because creativity comes naturally to them. And this comes from their soulfulness, and every work is unique. No two works of our indigenous peoples are the same. So every work is a new creation, therefore it's a work of art. Why do we call them craftsmen? And why don't we call Picasso a craftsman? Why do we call him an artist? Simply because every work is different. That's the case with our indigenous weavers, metalsmiths, makers. They are really artists. Why don't we call them artists? And that's our selling point. If they're artists, you know, I challenge any graduate of St. Benil. I taught in St. Benil for 2 years, no? I challenge any artist from UP. Kung makakagawa kayo ng banig na ginagawa ng badyaw, minamaliit natin yung badyaw. Kala mga puro bilang. But they have no recourse. Dinimahin natin yung dagat nila. That's why they can no longer continue their old way of life. That's why they have to beg. But they are among the best mat makers in the country, the Sama people. I challenge anybody, Manansala, Picasso, to make one badyaw mat. Mangangamote kayo. It's really more difficult than all those mga kung anong pinapainting na ginagawa niyo sa mga fine arts colleges. Because I know this, how difficult it is. No? So these are artists. Why don't we call them artists? They are not just craftsmen. If we can call Picasso an artist and his work involves craft, we can call him a craftsman if you like. And if you like, we can call all those artists craftsmen because all indigenous people are also craft people. But they are as well artists, just like Manansala, our national artist. That's what I mean. The moment we consider them artists and not just craftsmen, their work could be sold much higher. And that's what, don't tayo babawi. Even if we don't mass produce, if we can sell a banig of the badyaw for 100,000, mura pa nga yun eh. That's very cheap. Because I challenge anybody to doing that kind of money, 100,000. You pay Bencab. Wala naman sorry kaibigan ko sa Bencab, and in 2 hours I can make a painting and sell it for 2 million. That's ridiculous. That's unfair. No? A banig that takes you 3 months to finish. 3 months to finish. You sell it only for 7,000. That's really unfair. I think it should be at least 100,000. That's the way we can make even.
If I may share how we do it, like in my brand, Industria Edition, we do metal stuff. Um, you were mentioning that because we cannot we cannot compete with Vietnam or China with their industrialized setup. Ano. With us kasi, yes, we call ourselves metal, steel, furniture makers. But then again, if you think of, I don't know if you've seen Industria products. With our products kasi, if you say metal, kagad pumapasok sa inyo is the modern, ultra-modern furniture that's made in China, right? Like the shiny metal or whatever. Actually, I don't have anything that would be similar to that because I know China could easily copy it. With our pieces kasi, because of our export companies that we cater to, we still need to do a certain level of, alam mo yun, consistent production, although it's all handmade. So we call it consistent inconsistency. So kumbaga planado na kagad yung magkaiba siya ng konti. And then one thing for sure is to be a different brand or to have a value. We try to design pieces that has that type of personal or kapwa sense of it all, like Professor, what Professor did. We do metal in high hammering, high forging, meaning the texture itself, you can feel it. So you don't feel coldness or whatever in metal. You feel the warmth. And then the finishes that we do is we also try to make it not as polished, but even oil rub, planned, or antiquated look to get that feel of warmth. So, but again, another thing is when we design pieces, yes, we try to be different. We try to be an individual design, but we still have a consciousness of whatever we do. It's still a furniture. It has to be in an environment wherein there are other furniture beside it. So the consciousness is we design pieces that would look good with anything you put it with. Hindi yung gagawa ka ng furniture that is shouting, look at me, I'm different. That's not how we design things, especially if you want to be a furniture designer. We want to design pieces that could look good with anything you put it with. That's the sense of it all. But there is still a fine line to make it artisan looking. The kapwa detail is there. Everything is there. That's why the things that the design policy is a very clear roadmap to personalize something. But then again, with the consciousness of understanding who you're designing it for. Either it's for a community, for your market to sell, for a business. So I think that says it all. Thank you.
Thanks, Jude. From what I was getting there, you were highlighting different values than that was mentioned also by Prof. Felipe earlier. One of the things was the sharing independence, basically creating more harmony rather than stark contrast because it is a consideration for the community, right? I want to before I move to how we see the idea of kapwa translating into policies and programs, may I invite the audience also to participate by sending in your questions if you have any. In case you have any clarifications or insights, just feel free to raise your hands and then you'll be led to the microphones and I'll pipe in your questions to the conversation because this is a really good topic to discuss because you are going to be the ones who are going to be impacted by all of these in the near future. Jude is calling his daughter. You want to call Elkie too? She is melting. Okay. So perhaps let's round the discussion towards embedding kapwa. Okay, there we go.
Hi, I'm Anna.
Hi, Anna.
I'm a 115 Industrial Design alumni, but actually right now I'm not a designer currently. I'm a researcher right now, and my question is more for Sec Benitez, because I was like, really excited to hear about the opportunity for us designers to like help shape policies around K to 12 by exploring the development of a skills framework like for the design industry. My question was, what do you think are the ways that you're looking into implementing this endeavor?
Uh, Ria, you want to answer? No, I'll give the, we're actually doing it in conjunction with the design center because the way the skills framework works, right, is TESDA goes and asks an industry organization, right, what are the positions in your typical organization? And then they'll give us the list of what these positions are. And then we do a functional analysis. What are the tasks that these people are supposed to do in those positions? And what are the skills that they need for those to fulfill those tasks? And at what level of proficiency, right? We outline all of that and then create units of competencies for training for that, yeah? So right now, for specific to design, the design skills framework, kailan ba tayo magpipirmahan, Ria? We're doing it with the design center, basically, right? And in a way, what we would like to do is, because that's employment looking, right? It looks towards employment.
Connecting.
Yeah. It's deriving from the industry what kind of skills they need for jobs, right? So it's a job skills matching process. But once you have those functions, once you have that list of skills, and once you have the list of proficiencies of those skills, and you've been able to identify that, you can take those out, okay, and you can embed them on a scaffolding from K to 12 and up. So that would be the 3 or 4 steps, in a way, after the skills framework is finished. Does that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of had like a sort of follow-up question to that. Just thinking about like what are the ways that we can increase like access to collaboration between government and industry. For example, like not just going through design center, like maybe there are people falling through the cracks, like their talent isn't being utilized. I feel like as someone who did graduate from industrial design, that was kind of something I faced because not everybody is like the best student. Not everybody had the opportunity to work with design center as a student and kind of just realized like their value as designers or as researchers after. So they, not just me, but like other people, like they kind of fall through the cracks.
No, so it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Policy-wise, the procedure of the government, right, is usually to have somebody that they can recognize. So there has to be a persona or an entity that we deal with, right? Having said that, specific to matching up with industry specifically for MSMEs, for example, there is a new law that was passed last year and is being rolled out in the second half of this year on enterprise-based education and training, particularly for support for upskilling and apprenticeship programs, including work immersion for senior high school students, right? So there are 3 categories of the new EBET framework law. We have been tasked to find MSMEs that need, in fact, upskilling and apprenticeship programs and support from TESDA side. Yeah. So that's coming down the pipeline, and we're hoping to catch as many MSMEs as we possibly can. But obviously, the number and the scale, in terms of the training modalities that TESDA can roll out, we're trying to create the modules with Design Center, for example. I already said that we will try to create micro-credentials across the board that might be useful. What I didn't say was we're hoping that as many of those can be made into digital modules made available online, right? And then of course there's a process of you have to come to us, yeah, because we don't know who you are, right? So you'd have to come to us, to your local, if it's an LGU program, if it's a barangay training program, if it's an association that you're part of, women in business, for example, right? We need you to tell us what we need, how we can help. So we have the top-down process that we're doing now, but at some point we need the comeback, right? And because we're government, we need an entity that we can address.
Thank you. That's really nice. That's also something I realized, like I'm working with communities, like artisan communities. It's like that's a big barrier also being able to go to the government because sometimes they also don't want to share like their intangible arts and talents. So that's also something that has to be, I guess, like parsed and like thought about really carefully.
So the PISIDA, the Creative Industries Council, actually has a registry, right? So they want to be able to provide government help, particularly to creative industry workers. But they can't do it unless they know who those people are. So there's a registry process, yeah? But many creative industry workers are very reluctant to get registered by government because they're very worried that if you're registered, then we will tax you because we know who you are, right? So yung gimmick and sideline ninyo, suddenly may taxation na mangyayari, right? So that's a balancing act that the Creative Industries Council is aware of and needs to walk that tightrope, right? But because we're government, I'll just have to repeat it, because we're government, we need to know who and to where the money is going. So we need a person to get recognized. But the subsidy comes with, we recognize you. So there's risk for you on that end, right? Because it means we can now regulate you because we see who you are, right? So I understand the reluctance of many creative industry workers. They don't want the independence cramped, yeah. But as government, that's just how the money needs to be disbursed, yeah, in terms of resources. So one way is to put it out there through a digital MOOC, right, of some form. So there's no money exchange involved, but the learning can be gained. Yeah. So those are the things that we're working on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hopefully in the future there's more collaboration and trust and openness. Yeah, for everybody's benefit. Thank you.
I'd like to add on to that. Thank you for sharing, Kiko. So he was sharing basically process on how government works and working with public-private like partnerships and collaborations. With the Philippine Skills Framework for Design specifically, we at Design Center already finished the first 2 phases. And in a way, your struggles that you feel, which I also resonate with coming from private sector before going to government, that there is that roadblock. But really, the conversation should happen both ways because now, coming from the government side, it's also very difficult to find private sector players who are willing and able to contribute, to share, knowledge, information, even assistance. So I think, like what you said, it's also looking for organizations to be part of. Maybe the academe can also be a representative of this group. If you are an alumni of College of St. Benilde, it could be through Benilde because we actually have a MOA with Benilde. Thus, we are here, right? So these conversations we could have. We can give you an insight to what is happening, what projects are ongoing, and what's upcoming if you want to get more involved. So again, think of it as like it takes 2 to tango thing, right? But thank you for that. It's very rare also to find people who are eager to play a part. So Anna will keep you in mind and invite you also to our future events and engagements. Right? Okay. Okay, we have Idiria also here who would want to share something.
there. Well, thanks for the question. Kong Kiko, Secretary Kiko for like parang taking on. I mean, like I feel guilty that you were answering a lot of the questions that was directed to Design Center. But thank you as well, no, for talagang pushing us further into really institutionalizing the work that we do with or the work that we will do with TESDA and supporting our Philippine skills framework for design. I know that there is that hesitation, and I guess coming from the creative side, it's not really natural to think of working with government if you're in the creative side, because maybe the first thought is sometimes government will kill the creative side of you guys. But well, I'm an industrial designer myself, and it's just a relationship could just start. I mean, we're not asking for a marriage, but it's I mean, just try to work with or explore working with government or even some of our programs, and not just Design Center, but like other maybe DTI or TESDA programs, and just check it out. I mean, like keep an open mind. Of course, there are certain systems in place that is there to help, like parang in the way things are done in a certain organization. And that's the same way with government as it is with any business. But really, the being an industrial designer working for government, it's really it helps open your eyes to the bigger world of design and artisanship, and the kind of lessons, the kind of people that you meet is just so diverse that you really get to appreciate the full spectrum of what the Philippines can do, the kind of passionate artisans, craftsmen, business people that are really in the Philippines, that are looking for people to partner with. And whether you stick to government or whether you develop your own practice, that is your choice. But I mean, like it's good to understand the lay of the land, and make a decision from there where you want to take your skills, where you want to take your career. One of the pioneer or originals of Design Center, the late Toti Villalon, he has this amazing article. I think it's in Blueprint, about Genius Loci placemaking, and the way nga that from his own words, parang like, well, or I'm paraphrasing it. He understood. I mean, it was his work at Design Center that really opened his eyes to the colorful, parang like the culture of the Philippines. It's by visiting every region, every province in the Philippines that he got to appreciate what we are as a people and how we're so different, but embracing that diversity also gave him a voice from which he can design, he can create things, he can develop places, products, objects, systems. And that was very instrumental in who he became as a designer, as a national advocate for tangible and intangible heritage. So I mean, that's not a push to have you work for Design Center, but to really just open, I mean, like avenues by which you can take your career. And that's what Philippine Skills Framework for Design is all about. I mean, it's to also identify possible career tracks for you as a designer, as a creative, and explore which one they are. I come from a generation that's here from cradle to grave, but I know your generation could have 5 careers. So yun lang. I mean, just something to think about. Sorry.
Thank you, Idiria. So with that, I anchor this on the last question that we have for this panel. So you might be asking yourselves also, no, like, why is this relevant to me? The national design policy, what is it to me? Why is it significant now? And why is it relevant now? So I just want to throw this question into the panel of how they envision basically the Philippines benefiting from the national design policy. And I want to start, of course, with Sir Paolo Mercado.
Thanks, Carla. I want to express it in the smallest thing. There was a word cloud earlier. You know, what kapwa issue would you? How would you use the mindset of kapwa to design something better for the Philippines? And traffic was there, and a few others. I personally, my one thing is very simple that you see every day. Solid waste, trash. Particularly, and I'm coming from, okay, my background is I came from Nestle, you know, and we had this thing about single-use plastics and this whole thing of Greenpeace attacking Nestle, Unilever, P&G. It's your fault that the oceans are being polluted by your plastic waste. Okay, there is manufacturer responsibility. I'm not discounting that. But take a look at every Jollibee, 7-Eleven, McDonald's. Take a look at how everyone who eats there does not clean up after themselves, even if there is a trash can. So the question there is, what's the problem? Is the problem the design of the containers? Which is what Nestle and etc. were being blamed for? Is the question the lack of trash cans, whether it is the private sector or the public spaces? Or is it a problem of a lack of care to throw it, and maybe it's too ambitious to ask people to segregate it? You know, I think it's all of that one. And that's the logic of the design ladder. The design ladder is not about assigning blame to everyone, but just to understand this is a very systemic problem. But for us to address that systemic problem, there has to be that sense of kapwa, of shared responsibility, that this is our problem, you know, and we have to have our own contributions to solving this problem together. And sometimes kasi, and I've heard it once, and this is the last that, you know, of people not picking up for themselves after, eating a lot of stuff and throwing things all over in a 7-Eleven place. You know, one person actually said to her companion, na parang, hindi ba tayo magliligpit? Tapos the other person said, hindi naman natin trabaho nila yan eh. That's not pakikipagkapwa. And that for me is both expresses the cultural gap, and the rest of it is systemic. So that's the ambition of the design policy. We need to get it to that level.
It's really the collective effort. Thank you for that. That's why I appreciate this panel, because this is basically a powerhouse already of people who can implement these things. Kiko, I think we'll take that as cue for how you imagine TESDA really taking part in the implementation of the NDP.
Napaka-lalim naman ng tanong. Obviously, the short answer is when we're finally done with the IDEA on the skills framework, we can create the modules that we can disseminate now, so that we can make as widespread as possible the shift in mindset that makes quote-unquote design embedded in our culture. So that would be the easy answer, right? The truth is, when I said earlier that our education systems are actually based on a second industrial revolution, and that we are now in a desire for heading to, if not the fourth, the fifth industrial revolution, and that it will be a creative and innovation directed economy. Because of AI, because knowledge is now readily available on the internet, and so on and so forth. Part of the question for the design council and for the policy is, where does the Philippines want to position itself within a fifth industrial revolution globally, assuming that we are shifting towards a creative economy. And that creative economy will be pushing human-centeredness in many ways and in many aspects, whether you want your placemaking to be commuter-centric rather than cars, whether you want your designs for processes to be circular, so it's local and not a global industrial scale that you're thinking about, right? Because there are environmental issues, there are wastes that happen from that, right? We have had, 200 years of a system where we push for efficiency even if it generates too much waste, right? And so people's habits of not connecting to civic spaces and so on and so forth has been embedded in that process. We're back to the question of value, right? Value gets created through efficiency models, concentrated in the hands of the few and at the center, at the expense of things at the periphery, at the expense, therefore, of the environment, and so on. The promise of the creative economy is that old model will no longer generate the same type of value as it did before, right? The breakdown of supply chains because of COVID, for example, unearthed the desire for alternative types of models. So it provides an opportunity for designers specifically on, as I said, how to design for quality of life. So the question for us here is, where do we want to position the Philippines in a transition towards a kind of creative economy that is truly, in fact, human-centered? And I've always appreciated the work of Dr. Felipe, right? Because it's very clear that what makes us unique, what is truly the basis of what might be called Tatak Pinoy, right? For whatever you want to call it in DTI, Ria, malikhaing Pinoy, innovative Pinoy, and so on and so forth. All of that now being called Tatak Pinoy. At the end of the day, it's because Filipinos excel in care, right? And the problem is, you care for individuals, you care for your family and your community around you, and it's embodied, internalized, but it is not externalized into rules and laws. So you don't think of public spaces. You think only hanggang dito lang. And so there's a certain disconnect, right? So as we try to answer the question, where should the Philippines be, right, in an emerging creative economy globally, right? It cannot be answered without a number of things. A change in mindset that is not about, quote unquote, profit per se at the expense of waste, the environment, and all of these other things, right? It cannot be one that does not take into account empathy and our interpersonal relationships, for which we excel, which is why it's not just in artisans. No? The number of people that come to TESDA asking how fast we can train caregivers so they can go overseas is still, in fact, in many ways, a marker of a certain brand, right, of care that the rest of the world recognizes as an excellence that the Philippines has, right? So all of that needs to be embedded and connected. And I'm very happy to have seen the ladder today that Paolo presented, because I think it attempts or stages the conversation so that this kinds of discourse, can happen as we move towards really deciding in terms of policy. So when the Creative Industries Development Act says by 2030 we want to be the powerhouse in creative industries, what does that mean? How do you do that? How do you get there? And what steps do you need to make? And how much will it cost, right? In terms of budgetary support from government. Knowing, of course, that that's a policy direction which cannot be implemented unless partnerships, right, with all the stakeholders come together. I'm sorry, that was my long answer to your short question.
I feel like, how do we follow that?
But maybe my question to the rest of the panel would be, what is your commitment? Right? Because it's very well said, and it really frames everything that you all three talked about earlier. So from the private sector, ano po yung promise natin?
For us now, with whatever we design in our products, we still try to find a way to use sustainable material. Besides the fact that we are already designing with respect to kapwa, with respect to what we just talked about with design policy, the sustainability or the sustainable materials that can be used is just like an addition for us. And I think we're just trying to be like online of things. And I agree about, just being, just empathizing with whatever we do. Yung kamukha ng it's not just designing with empathy, but just having the culture of having that empathy. Like, yun nga, nandun ka sa Jollibee or wherever, McDonald's, that is like zero empathy, saying, ay, sila na lang, kaya na nilang linisin yan. So that's zero empathy. So, this audience here, if you guys can relate, we can start at least at this number of people here to understand empathy, not just in design, but in the whole culture of things. If we can change that with these young minds, then we're in the right track. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. Maybe.
Our commitment in behalf of the Women's Business Council Philippines and also Go Negosyo and the Department of Trade and Industry is to mentor. We know that you cannot give what you do not have, but if you're now a designer and a successful one as you are, whether as an employer or an employee, we are here to handhold you so that we make sure that you'll be part of the design economics and to be part of nation building. Thank you. Carla. And by the way, if I may add, that to reduce the stigma that if you're a designer or an artist, aasa kayo sa mga magulang nyo para suspentohan kayo hanggang you reach the mature age, you will be successful on your own and you will make a name and you will make Philippines proud.
Thank you, Ms. Mylene. Prof. Felipe here just whispered, you asked the most important question. I feel so validated. So I will turn over this microphone.
Your last question is the most important one. And I think you gave the problem, that you also, represented that people will just touch anywhere, Ano yan eh? You said that Filipinos are very caring people. Yes, that's very true, but only if we trust the other. That's why Filipinos are even more productive abroad, because they trust the government. They trust their yung boss nila ron or kung sino yung manager. The moment trust is broken, kapwa operates only within the small circle of family and friends because that's where trust is not broken. The problem is very big. It's not just cultural, it's political. Because for ages, the government has been hostile to people. Filipinos, in general, see government as a hostile force. That's why anything that is public is not theirs. The Filipinos don't feel any sense of ownership of this nation. They don't feel a sense of ownership of the nation. We are alien. Most Filipinos feel alienated from their government. Which represent the nation? The government. And if the government is not doing well, the Filipinos will not trust the government and will not trust anything that is public, which is government. No? Look, the problem, how can we trust the government? I'm speaking from the point of view of common people. There are vanishing sidewalks, mga design fails, yung sa Kamuni, yung talagang Spider-Man lang makakakit sa overpass na yon. There are no more public parks and gardens. The Quezon Memorial used to be a very good park. Now it's being overtaken by business. That's also true for Bonifacio Monument. That was very, very wide. Now, what happened? The business sector, the elite, even the government, Arab, no? Permitted the building of the Torre de Manila. I call it Terror de Manila. Imagine, that is disrespect for our national symbol, Rizal. In other words, if the people cannot, if the government cannot respect the people, how can the people respect anything public? For me, therefore, the problem is not only cultural but political.
I agree.
Kiko agrees. Thank you very much for that. I like that we got all of the different perspectives within this conversation from the design sector, from public and private sector as well, from the Women Business Council. There's also, of course, TESDA. There's, of course, Sir Paolo working on the NDP. And, of course, the academe with Prof. Felipe. That was a really good conversation. I wish we had more time, honestly, because I think I could just absorb all of your, your intelligence. So this wraps up our panel discussion, and I would like to thank everyone who's here with us today, our speakers and all of our attendees who joined us in celebrating the World Industrial Design Day. And on behalf of the Design Center, we would also like to thank our co-presenter, the World Design Organization, our institutional partner, De La Salle College of St. Benilde, our program partners, the Design Advisory Council of the Philippines and A. Garcia Lifestyle Inc., and of course, our media partners, we have Adobo Magazine and Art Plus Magazine. Now, to capture this special moment, can we gather for a group photo? I would like to call on the audience. We can take a photo here first with the panel, and then we'll take another photo from this perspective.
Thank you to everyone who's here with us today, our speakers, and all our attendees who joined us in celebrating World Industrial Design Day. Design Center also would like to thank our co-presenter, World Design Organization, our institutional partner, De La Salle College of St. Benilde, our program partners, Design Advisory Council of the Philippines, A. Garcia Lifestyle Incorporated, our media partners, Adobo Magazine, Art Plus Magazine. And with that, we officially end IDxConversations, We More Than Me. Thank you so much again for joining us today. Hope you can all support and join us in the upcoming events of the Design Center of the Philippines. We have International Design Conference this September and Design Week Philippines this coming October. To stay tuned for exciting news and updates, you can follow us on our official Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn accounts. Just type in and search DTI Design Center of the Philippines. This has been IDxConversations, We More Than Me. Happy World Industrial Design Day, everyone!